right, we're going to call the meeting to order at 7:34. In accordance with the open meeting law, were we okay? I'm sorry. In accordance with the open meeting law, the board states for the record that this meeting is being recorded by NORCAM and may be recorded by other local media. If we could all stand for the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business, board member reports. I'll start with you, Mr. Walner. Get this stuff together.
Three things. One is I've been promising for everybody would get a survey, and it came in your census. So it's the Town of North Reading 2024 Accessibility Survey. It's 4 pages. However, you only have to look at the top to see if it applies to you. And so I did mine in like 2 minutes, and I'm ready to hand it in. And you can stick it right in with it won't add on to the postage. You're going to stick it right inside here with your census, and it will come right in. And it's hitting every household, and it's focused on transportation needs, and it's focused on disabilities that we have in town to try to get a handle on what those are all about. That's number one. Second thing, from the Tax Aid Committee, I'm giving the select board a little heads up that we're planning to propose to the board and to the town a match of the circuit breaker. That is the Mass State circuit breaker. And there's about 400 households in North Reading that took advantage of the circuit breaker benefit through the state. A lot of towns around us are doing match programs to the circuit breaker. And so we're looking to do something like that for our town. And this is reaching out to people who file for the circuit breaker, or people who are on the very edge of leaving our town because they can't afford to stay here. So we'd be reaching out to them.
How much is the circuit breaker credit?
It's going to be $2,500 in a year. It's $1,500. It's $1,250 right now. It's going to be $2,500. State's upping it, and then we would match. And I think we're thinking of a 50% match on top of that. And it wouldn't affect 2025. It would affect 2026.
Okay.
So it'd be plenty of time to review it with the finance committee, to go over it and everything else like that. So, but we're working on that, and like our neighbors in Wakefield, they're at 100% match. A lot of our towns are at 100% match right now. So something that, again, we're reaching out to the people who are on the fringe of not being able to afford living in town. And it's all administratively, it's largely done by the state through your tax returns, because you have to file for the tax return in order to get it. And the only request I have is that we had tentatively planned to explore accessory dwelling unit policy with select board along with CPC. I know that we were waiting, we had this special town meeting coming up, but I'm just trying to remind who is ever in charge. Let's try to get that. Let's try to get that.
We're still on it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's try to get that date going, because if we're going to bring it up for the town meeting in June, we're running out of time. So thank you. And that's it.
Before you start, Mr. O'Leary, I forgot to mention that Mrs. Selectwoman Manupelli will be joining us a little later on Zoom. She had a work obligation, so she will be joining us on her commute home, just so you know. Mr. O'Leary, board member reports. Did you do old and new business too?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Took care of it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was also going to bring up the ADU issue in hopes that we can, again, get something to progress here, because state legislation is still moving forward, and I don't want to get caught, without having some sort of position. This board's been very clear. And I think we need to get on the same page with the Community Planning Commission. I think a joint meeting would be great, and I hope we can facilitate that sooner rather than later. Just the Historical Commission kind of reconstitutes some new members here. New Energy is looking to do some fundraising efforts, and I just want to make the board aware of it, that in the coming months we'll be made aware of different activities that they're looking to hold to aid in some renovations to some of the historical buildings, and I think it's fantastic, and they have some great ideas, and I look forward to working with them and trying to facilitate whatever actions they're looking to do. But it's great to see some enthusiasm now around the issues, and so happy that we have newly constituted, still looking for some people, but it's great. Again, Hillview renovations to the course is still ongoing, just weather permitting on things, that's going well, and I know there's been some meetings from a budgetary standpoint with the administration for next year's budget. That's going well too. And other than that, Madam Chair, also, thank you. And I just want to remind people, come tomorrow. Special town meeting. We have a very important issue, which we all need to consider as far as purchasing this piece of property, along with some housekeeping issues that we need to do from a budgetary standpoint. But we need 150 people. We have this marvelous opportunity that's been presented to us by the Wheeler family, and I think we should be taking advantage of it. And I would hope that people just take a little bit of time out of their busy schedules to attend the town meeting tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at the high school.
Thank you. Here you go.
The only, and we're trying to get, we're still, since the ruling on the 40B for 20 Elm from the
Housing appeals.
the DHS, yes, we are now waiting still waiting for a scheduled date between ZBA and the developer. And at this point, it's just really waiting for the developer to engage. I think the ZBA is just waiting for that. So really, there wasn't a big update, but I know people have been asking, so there's been no movement since the ruling at all. So right now, we're just kind of, wait and see what the next move approach is. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a better update for the public. And I have no new business, except come to town meeting tomorrow, because I'll be there.
Thank you, Mr. Studo.
Excuse me, can we just,
Yes.
how about wastewater? How are we doing on wastewater? It's not
So
that
wastewater, it's still at not only waiting for info, but where we were 2 weeks ago, where we are in discussion with North Andover and Andover to give a update to the town on precisely, if we've now confirmed the friendly backing of helping us out to do that. We already have it for Andover, we're just waiting on some final discussions with North Andover, but that's where we're at. So, thank you.
Thank you. The only update I have is with the Housing Authority, we are still looking to replace our director there. There is some interest from Reading to step in and because they're a bigger housing authority, so they're showing some interest to take us on. They have an assistant director who I believe would come over here. So, right now our director only gets to work so many hours. They're only here 2 days a week. So, it's an interesting thing to explore right now with us. So we're still doing that. We're still interviewing and trying to find the right fit. Other than that, I don't have anything else, but come to town meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. We need a quorum. No matter how you feel, we don't want to waste tax dollars having a meeting that we can't do anything at. We have to have a quorum to be able to do anything. So, if you can, come out so that we can get our business done. 7:45, do we have to kill a couple of minutes?
We're right on time.
We're right on time? Okay, all right. Ryer's Market, LLC, DBA Ryer's Store, transfer of package store, wine and malt license, common victular license.
Madam Chair, through you, we could ask the applicant to maybe come forward and take a seat. That might be helpful. While they're approaching, Madam Chair, as the board knows and as is reflected on the agenda, we received an application to transfer the package store wine and malt license currently issued to Judy and Mark Hall, to a new business entity that is here before us. Our understanding is that they're in a transition right now, working with the halls and operating facility, but will be looking to take over operating very shortly, pending all the regulatory approval. Might make sense, Madam Chair, just to ask them for an update, if they want to say in their
Sure.
own words what they were going to do, identify themselves, et cetera.
Please do, please do.
I'm Jim Dietz.
I'm Jay Duffley.
We own Joe Fish in North Reading. Before we closed that down, we own Apothecary Ales also in North Reading. We own Joe Fish in North Andover and the Loft also in North Andover. So we're here to hopefully this process moves in the right direction.
Can you tell us about your plans? Are you planning on keeping it the way it's always been?
Riders, it's a staple in the community. I took over the Loft, which is a staple in the community in North Andover, so I'm familiar with keeping a iconic building like that and business that the community wants to enjoy and still have that same feel of a country market. The Halls did a fantastic job for many years there. We
Yeah.
can just continue to do what they did and just build off that. And we're very close with Judy and Mark in this transition, working very well together. And it seems like it's going to be a seamless transition.
Do my colleagues have questions or comments?
No questions, but comments. I mean, you got some,
Sure.
as you pointed out, Ryers is iconic here in the community, and Mark and Judy have done a fantastic job of taking that once little store, which was hustle and bustle in the community, and turning it into a beautiful facility, and then making it a successful business, and now looking to transition to somebody else. I'm happy to see that it's somebody that we know and have dealt with over the years and had successful relationships with, and I just want to impress upon you how important it is for the community to have Ryers succeed, and for you to continue with that success, and I wish you nothing but success. And if there's anything we can be of assistance, let us know, and I look forward to supporting the
Background
efforts.
about myself,
You're local.
I'm local, I've been in town for over 30 years.
Yep.
Been here since '91. I've known Mark and Judy for quite a long time, and when we didn't renew the lease at Joe Fish in North Reading, I think that same day Mark called me up and said, Jay, we're going to talk.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about this opportunity in the past as well, so it's all finally coming to fruition, so it's really exciting, it's really scary, and it's a big challenge, but I'm up for it, so I'm really looking forward to this.
Jay and I have worked together for about 25 years.
Just at Joe Fish.
Joe Fish together.
We worked at Legals
Yep.
prior to that,
So we have a great relationship going back, and he is a partner there, so we're looking forward to doing this. It's very exciting.
It's good. Very good.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Welder?
Just, no, I wish you all the best. Just
Thank
a
you.
little out of, retail's a little bit more out of your,
So my
Normal.
background, actually, from New York originally, my first business in '85 was an Italian deli.
Oh.
So it's not foreign to me. It's probably the hardest job I ever had in my life. So, getting into it.
I think Ryers may match that, who knows?
Exactly, yeah.
No,
There's a
but,
lot to learn.
There's a lot there.
yeah, no, I'm sure there is,
A lot of
yeah.
moving parts, but
No, I wish you lots of luck. It's,
not
it is,
outside our window, so.
yeah, I mean, there's so many people in town who feel good about Ryers that you're not trying to rebuild some
Not at all.
reputation.
We
You're
wanna
trying to sustain what's already there and
Yes.
optimize it. I think there's more to go, in my mind, so.
That's why I wanted to compare the Loft story to Ryers, because I'm very familiar with an iconic store
Yeah,
or restaurant or whatever that people come to use, utilize, and count on and be there, and we're just trying to make it better.
yeah, that's great. Thank
I
you
could
very much.
use a winning lottery ticket once in a while. Mark, I never had much luck, but
Steve, if that happens now, you're going to be in trouble.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
it doesn't keep saying.
yeah.
All right, good
Mr.
luck.
Studo? All right, I will just add, it is a gem. The halls did a fantastic job with it. I have friends who will come up from the South Shore, and we've gone in there, and they're like, wow, this place is great. Do you plan on keeping the employees?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And what is your functions? Are you the chef?
I'm gonna be like the
You
owner
were the chef?
operator, so yeah, Jim's my partner, and I'll be just less than a half mile away.
Oh, wow, oh, so that's great.
Yeah, my commute's about a minute, so driving.
I'm
8 minutes
jealous.
walking. So yeah, I'll be there. I'm a chef. I'll be chef, owner, operator. I've got both my boys that are, they're locals. My oldest is a sophomore at UMass Lowell. My youngest is a junior at the high school. They both work with me, and
Oh.
my wife is going to be working there as well. So it's
Great.
from one family to another.
So then you're aware of the kids all heading over
Oh,
there?
yeah. My boys, they went to the badge elder school.
Yeah.
My oldest was the first class to go from all through middle school through high school. So he's the class of 2022.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we welcome you and
Thank you.
wish you the best, of
Thanks.
course. And,
Very excited.
yeah. Okay, so do we,
Mark.
oh, Mark, would you?
Mark, you gonna pull the deal out
Did you
from
wanna
underneath them
speak?
now?
Say that everybody knows how much this store means to me, I believe anyway. And these guys are the chosen ones, and they're going to let us in the building after we sell it. So
Yeah.
we're not going anywhere.
Carte blanche.
We're not going anywhere. My daughter's going to still work there. All the rest of the staff is still going to work there.
Great.
And we don't want it to change.
Trying to talk Judy into a couple
They-
shifts too.
She wants to. Yeah. She does. Yeah.
They're going to keep it the same.
Yeah.
With minor changes and stuff, and hopefully grow it into bigger things, which there's definitely potential for. So I fully encourage you to vote for this license. And I want to make it clear, we're not selling the property, we're only selling the store.
Just the store.
So
So Mark will be our landlord, so he's still involved. He comes in every morning.
whether you like it or not.
When I bought the loft, I keep on going back to that. Jane was the owner, Jane and her husband were the owners, and she came to me and she said, I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. I've been here every day for the last 20
Yeah.
years. So I said, well, there's no reason why I have to leave. And she stayed with me for 15 years after that.
Oh, that's great. That's good to hear.
Like I said, I'm trying to talk Judy into a few shifts.
Well, I just want to say, I grew up here, so I knew Molly, Molly Ryan, Bill Ryan, Judy and Mark Hall, so we want to add your name to the list, and you have generations of success.
Thank you.
Okay, and everything's in order and we're,
Yes, Madam Chair, through you. We had some good dialogue with, I believe it's Brittany. who,
Yes.
been handling
That's my
the
dog.
licensing.
She talk to you
And then
every day, right?
Jim more recently with the food permit application, which is now pending with the Board of Health. So it does appear that everything is in order for
Okay.
transfer. They're running up against a timeline of current food permit. This is separate from the Select Board's Board of Health that will be expiring coming up. And we have a new application pending now with the Board of Health that hopefully will go through this week. So,
okay, great.
but it does appear that everything is in order.
All right,
It
so,
will need to be submitted to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission. As you know, they need to
Yeah.
review it as well, and then we'll go from there. I believe we have 3 motions, Madam Chair.
3
I
motions?
just add one thing. Is
Sure.
what, you should realize, though, when it comes to underage people buying alcohol, that's like a really, really big deal here. So,
Especially across the street from a high school.
Yeah.
so, be tight on that one. We have precedent that we follow, so it's, it's not a place you want to be, and it can happen to the best of us. But, just the same, be really, really tight on that one, because that can really cause problems for everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Madam Chair, I move to approve a transfer of license for the retail packaged goods store, wine and malt beverages license from Ollie's Store Incorporated, doing business as Ryer's Store, to Ryer's Market LLC, doing business as Ryer's Store, at 162 Park Street, to expire December 31, 2024, subject to all regulatory department requirements.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and I have a second by Mr. O'Leary. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Welcome.
We do.
We wish you all the best.
We have
Two more votes.
Two more
Yes,
votes.
Oh,
Yeah.
two
Don't
more.
applaud yet.
No, never
Not clear
mind.
yet.
I take it back.
I'm sorry.
Sit tight.
Okay, that's okay. Madam Chair, I move to approve a change of manager for the retail packaged goods store, wine and malt beverages license for Ryers Market LLC, doing business as Ryers Store at 162 Park Street, from Judith A. Hall to James Duffley.
Second.
All right, I have a motion. I have a second by Mr. O'Leary. All in favor?
Aye.
And I take back the unanimous because Mrs. Minipelli is not present. You got that?
Absolutely.
And we
Yep.
have another one?
And then last one, yep, Madam Chair, I move to approve a common victular license for Ryers Market LLC, doing business as Ryers Store at 162 Park, to expire December 31, 2024, subject to all regulatory department requirements.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second by Mr. O'Leary. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Now-
Now we can.
Can we clap now?
Yes, now. Your success is the town's success, so we wish you all the
I
best.
will, for sure. We're going to get it, there's camera in there.
And I order my lunch from there sometimes, so
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Make sure it's good.
Mrs. Mullen?
Is it okay to speak to me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything you have done as a business owner in this town. You and Judy, because the class acts and the volunteerism, the way you handle everything in town is what you do. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck to you.
Thank you. We continue that.
All right. Now you can go. So we're 5 minutes early for the informational hearing, so is there something quick we can do?
There's some appointments, right? When are we gonna pass on? Like, you're not gonna do anything.
So we can do.
Acceptance of the donation for the senior center?
Okay.
Mr. Gilberto, did you want to speak on that?
Well, yes, just more than one.
Yep.
Here you go.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a donation that has been given to the Senior Center, through its director, King Manzelli, from the Friends of the North Reading Council on Aging. We've been a strong partner for the Senior Center over a number of years. Most recently, helping to support, through this donation, the use of some space for programming for 13 weeks at Aldersgate Church, running from March through May. So I think, as everyone's aware, the Senior Center expanded its programming beyond the four walls of the third meeting house to Aldersgate last fall. A successful program that they've been able to offer. This donation will basically cover the cost for the use of the space. It's making a contribution to the facilities associated with the use of the space and the cost of the space. To operate a space. Aldersgate's been a tremendous partner for the Council on Aging and making their space available. I didn't ask Mrs. Minipelli to be here this evening, but I know she would be speaking highly of the relationship that they have developed over the past few months at this location. Again, it's a donation in the amount of $1,950. Your accepting the donation will basically authorize the ability to utilize the funds for the upcoming expense associated with the use of the space. I will note, this covers the use of the space only, does not cover the actual programming itself. That's coming out of either other donations or the Senior Center's budget or its state-issued formula grant in place as well. So this is only for just the use of the space. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I believe we provided a motion.
Okay, thank you.
All set. Madam Chair, I move to accept a gift in the amount of $1,950 from the Friends of the North Reading Council of Aging gift for On the Move programming, March to May, for the O'Leary Senior Center.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second by Mr. O'Leary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mrs. Minipelli absent.
Yeah.
Just I want to applaud
Yeah,
Ms. Manzelli for, again, going outside the boundaries of
right.
of the senior center that currently exists. Obviously, there was a need for expanding the programming, but needing some expanded space to do so, and partnering with the Aldersgate Church, and we appreciate the efforts that they put in and willing to work with us on it. That's great. And, I had some reports back that Zuba's been terrific, so I personally did not participate, but it's good. The expansion of the programs, the ability to work outside the four corners of the senior center, it works. So good for them for what they're doing, and much appreciation to the Friends of the North Reading Council on Aging too for raising the funds and supporting the program.
I agree, thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
I've heard great things about that program going on over there.
Can I just say one thing in regard to that? Kim is doing a fantastic job. She's increased the numbers big time to the point where we had to go to the Aldersgate because we're working out of both buildings, you know, on Mondays. Next we're changing it to Thursdays, I think, but she's doing an incredible job and the people love her. So, I mean, can't say enough about her.
Thank you for that.
It's great to hear.
It's
Thank you.
nice to hear, yeah. And I don't know, what are you doing there? You old enough to be
I
there?
go up there and pretend.
You just
I'm old.
helping?
I just go up and pretend I'm old.
She brings some youth to the group. Right, Pat?
That's right.
All right.
Yeah, the staff there is wonderful too. I mean, the staff
Yeah.
is outstanding.
Okay, so I think we are ready to, do I have a public hearing notice that I should be reading?
I thought there was one in the packet.
Let me,
It's on page 105 of the meeting packet, right before the warrant.
Did you say 105?
105.
105.
Unless I misread
No, that's,
Do you want me to get it for
they're the same page.
You can read it here for that.
That's hold on. 2 pages of 103.
I guess it's right there. I think it starts right there. The select board will, is that where it starts?
103.
Select
It's got
board
the
will.
town seal on it.
Yeah.
Before that, 2 pages before.
105.
Yeah, 103. 103.
103.
Oh, I thought you said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I said 105. It
Oh,
just went
okay.
over.
Oh,
so am I reading the right thing here?
No, it's a notice of information.
103 then. Yeah, you're at 104. Okay, there it is right there.
Oh, good
All right.
God.
Oh, one, yeah.
You want my glasses?
Oh my God, even with my glasses. All right, bear with me.
We can
It's,
expand
You
it.
you can do the plus sign.
Oh, I got it, I
Yeah,
got
read
it,
his
I did
digest
it.
large
Yeah.
print version.
Okay. Notice of public hearing. In accordance with Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws, what do you
We
mean?
just did that one. The Ryers one we just did. There's 2 of them, Mike.
Yeah, 103 is the informational hearing.
For Ryers?
Nope, for the warrant article hearings. That's what my 103 is, at least.
That, it's right here, notice of public hearing. right?
Yeah, it is, so it doesn't give you the page number, that's why.
Right, that's why I was like, I was trying to find it here.
I think she had it on the Ryers one.
Here we go.
But she said public
It was-
hearing.
it was-
The next one's
yeah.
informational hearing.
There you go, it's that.
Thank you, Mr. Studo. Notice of informational hearing. The North Reading Select Board does hereby notify the residents of the town of North Reading that an in-person and virtual informational hearing on the following articles contained in the January 30th, 2024 special town meeting warrant will be held. Monday, January 29th, 2024, 8 p.m., Town Hall, Room 14. The hearing may be accessed virtually as follows: via phone, via internet. This hearing will represent an opportunity for residents to learn more about the articles on the special town meeting warrant, to ask questions, and to engage in discussion in advance of the special town meeting. A list of warrant articles is as follows. Article 1, acquisition and appropriation at 1 Central Street. Article 2, amend FY 2024 operating budget. Article 3, amend F 2024 capital budget. This hearing is held pursuant to Sections 18 through 25 of Chapter 30A of the Massachusetts General Laws, the Open Meeting Law. Any interested citizen is welcome to virtually attend and participate in this hearing. The public is reminded that a quorum of 150 voters is required to conduct business at the special town meeting on Tuesday, January 30th. Your attendance is encouraged and appreciated. Notice of explanation. It is the unanimous desire of the North Reading Select Board to encourage and allow the highest level of public participation in making decisions that affect North Reading. This warrant article hearing is intended to represent an opportunity for extended virtual discussion in advance of town meeting. We sincerely hope that you will join us for this hearing on January 30th, 2024 at 8 p.m. Select Board members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry for the confusion with that. Again, this town meeting, special town meeting, scheduled to begin at 7 o'clock p.m. tomorrow night, Tuesday, January 30th, at the middle high school in the gymnasium. I know it's been said before, but I'm going to reiterate. We are urging registered voters to attend. We normally have our annual town meeting in June and October in accordance with the town charter. This special town meeting is primarily being called to authorize and appropriate funding for a time-sensitive real estate transaction. Under the town's bylaws, a quorum of 150 voters must be present in order to conduct business. If we don't have 50 voters, we cannot proceed to the town meeting. Under state law, voter registration ended on January 20th. If you're not registered to vote, you may still attend, but you may be seated separately from voters. And just to clarify, even though we are not proposing to fund this transaction with borrowing, because it is a land acquisition, it requires approval by 2/3 of voters attending town meeting. Sources of funding, I'm going to ask folks to ignore the numbers because I didn't update them in time for this hearing. But we're talking about spending free cash. To the description, it's a portion of undesignated fund balance at the end of the previous fiscal year, certified as available by the Department of Revenue. More simply put, it generally reflects revenue that we have in excess of what we budgeted or we forecast, and amounts of money that were not spent from departmental budgets with an adjustment to reflect certain liabilities and uncollected taxes. That's a definition we've worked into discussion because we often get that question. What is this free cash? What is it? Again, the dollar amounts in those categories are not accurate. Please ignore those. We'll have them updated for tomorrow night. But we have, I believe it's roughly $4 million. Is that right, Mrs. Gallivan? $4.3 million remaining in free cash going into this town meeting. Water enterprise retained earnings. This is essentially the free cash for the town's water enterprise. And the Water Infrastructure Stabilization Fund is essentially the rainy day fund for the town's water enterprise. So again, just giving folks a little bit of background of what these funding sources are when we get to them. The first article, the purpose for the meeting, to authorize the acquisition and appropriation for 1 Central Street. Sorry folks, I'm realizing that's not broadcasted up there.
Everybody can see that okay?
The parcel in question is a single-family house lot that abuts town-owned land connected to Ipswich River Park and fronting on Central Street. The appropriation being requested is the sale price, $650,000 in free cash. There are additional slides that will follow, but I will note that there have been multiple recommendations offered from boards and committees on this transaction, from the Select Board here back in December, from the Finance Committee in January, from the School Committee, I believe, 2 weeks ago, From the Parks and Recreation Committee, Ms. Mullen, do I have that right? They also voted a recommendation. And I believe also the Land Utilization Committee, has that occurred yet? It has, okay. So we have 5 elected and appointed boards that have offered recommendations, and there may be more that, that come about the evening of town meeting, because there are other boards that are meeting beforehand. So quite a bit of support out there for this transaction. Just going through, this is a map or a graphic that we put together to show the property that we're talking about. This is generally the land area associated with Ipswich River Park at the intersection of Central and Chestnut Streets, with Central running up and down and Chestnut running sort of at an angle on the bottom side. That gray shaded area is the parcel in question, 1 Central Street. It directly abuts 2 town-owned parcels. 5 Central Street is the town of North Reading's parcel, under the care, custody, and control of the Hillview Commission, but occupied by the town's recreation center, which is maintained by our Parks and Recreation Department. 3R Central Street, more commonly associated as a dirt parking lot for, or gravel parking lot for the soccer fields. Also town of North Reading owned, under the care, custody, and control of the Hillview Commission, but serving as the Parks and Recreation Maintenance and Parking Lot. So again, 2 parcels of town-owned land. I will note both of those parcels are protected under Article 97 of the state constitution, which means that they are protected for use as parkland. There are a number of options for use there that are consistent with that have been discussed. There are others that are not consistent with that, as we've discussed over the years, that would require legislative action should we actually choose to proceed with them. Beyond the 3 parcels that I've talked about, the one in question, the 2 that directly abut, those remaining parcels that would look like house lots on Central Street are actually part of Ipswich River Park. They are protected Article 97 land with the rest of the park, and the large parcel is what we commonly would identify as the parking lot, as the soccer fields, and as the other areas of the park. So we're very close to town-owned land. To the south, or the bottom of the page, is a recently subdivided parcel that fronts Chestnut Street. Immediately to the south is a single-family home. Further to the southeast is a home that was torn down and is now being reconstructed, and there are 2 other house lots that follow as well. As I mentioned, it abuts the town-owned land that is primarily utilized by the Parks and Recreation. Considerations for potential future use have included an indoor recreation facility, an updated parks maintenance building, and/or an intergenerational community center, although other potential municipal uses may be identified in the future as well. I know some folks have had some discussion in a variety of different forms. I failed to write on here, full disclosure, I do have children who play ice hockey, but there's also been discussion of a potential ice hockey rink as well for that location. So multiple ideas that have been identified for this spot. And I think the message that we've tried to convey to the community is that any one of those could be selected at a future point in time, but all of them are made more feasible with the acquisition of this house lot and the frontage that it brings, and the relatively dry land area that it brings as well. Depending on the eventual use, a state legislative approval may be required. So again, if it's something that we're talking about that is not protected, not defined as parkland use, it may require that legislative action in the future. As I mentioned, it's adding contiguous land and frontage on Central Street. The purchase price is $650,000 and is anticipated to be funded using available funds, specifically free cash, without the need for a debt exclusion or override. So I'll say that again, without the need for a debt exclusion or override. Some of our prior land acquisitions going back probably more than 10 years at this point have required an override of Proposition 2.5 to further tax increase beyond what taxes would normally increase from one given year to the next. That is not the case for this transaction. It's not necessary for this transaction because we do have available funds in the form of free cash to cover the cost of this. This is a graphic. Fortunately, it's coming through better on that screen than it is on my computer. Kind of looking from the area directly over the fields at Ipswich River Park, looking what would be southwest. You see the gravel parking lot that I think many of us are familiar with. The large building, kind of top center of the screen, is the current Parks and Recreation maintenance facility. And further toward the top of the screen is the existing recreation center, which is a former Cape-style single-family home. Directly to the left of that, circled in black, is the single-family home that we're discussing acquiring here at 1 Central Street. And you see to the right-hand side the so-called meadow area right on Chestnut Street in the parking lot, the paved parking lot for Ipswich River Park. A couple of things that we put on here, because I know there are questions that have come up. Will my taxes go up? No. The funding source is free cash, which is essentially funding left over from the previous fiscal year. Some discussion about the use of free cash. Could it be utilized to lower taxes? As we've mentioned, probably most recently at the June town meeting, we received budget requests that exceed the available funds in a given year. For this current fiscal year, just a reminder, the request exceeded what was available by $3 million. We have an $88 million budget per year. It's a significant gap. Free cash has been an important tool to purchase equipment, to repair buildings, and to cover certain non-recurring costs in the municipal and school budgets each year whenever the projected revenue is insufficient, which has, in my, 9 budget cycles, has been every year going through this. We've managed to balance the budget, but relying on free cash has been an important part of it, and that includes a capital, such as an acquisition like this, use of those funds. Another frequently asked question, how will we decide what we will do with the land? There are multiple committees that are working to review options for the use of the property in this area, including the Facilities Master Plan Committee, the Parks and Recreation Committee, the Hillview Commission, and the Land Utilization Committee. So there is quite a bit of work that is going on. No, we haven't come to a conclusion of which option or alternative is the right direction for the town to go in. But again, the most important point that I think the board, myself, and others want to reiterate to town meeting is that any of those options become exponentially more palatable with the addition of this relatively dry land contiguous to land we already own. Another thing that I will just note too is the property is occupied by, or has recently been occupied by a long-term resident at the location there. Knowing that there could be something in the future that happens there. Whoever acquired the property in the future was likely going to be impacted by development right in their backyard in the form of something that the town will ultimately do with the property. Sure, I'm kind of speaking this way too, so that's not helping. What I was saying is the property has been recently occupied by a long-term resident. Whoever occupies the property, if it were to sell on the open market, is likely to be impacted by whatever future use occurs at this site, whatever it might be, in the form of a municipal facility of some form or otherwise. So that's also a consideration that I think we're all trying to bear in mind as well. There's something that's come up, a property on Mill Street that we've had some conversation on. We still own a single-family property that we bought and haven't used. Why buy this property? I think a significant difference is that we already own contiguous land near this parcel, making it that much more advantageous for us, and for which we've been having quite a bit of discussion about the future use of. The town acquired this lot in question, 9 Mill Street, in 2017. The parcel has a water main on it and was intended to also house a water pump station that would be connected to Reading. However, as most in the room know, in 2018, the town opted to proceed with a 99-year agreement with Andover instead. Property was purchased with a different funding source, water enterprise revenues, and is anticipated to be sold using state-required request for proposal process early this spring. I expect the town will retain the right to use a portion of the land for a future municipal use, which at this point in time has not been determined. So that sort of concludes what I had to state with regard to the parcel that we're talking about at 1 Central Street. It cannot be understated for anyone just tuning in. It's critically important that we have 150 voters at the town meeting tomorrow night. This is a time-sensitive transaction. The town's been offered the opportunity to acquire this property for a reasonable price. Some would say better than reasonable, and I think we're looking to take advantage of it. But the seller is also, if it's not going to work out, is going to look to the market in the spring as well. So to perfect our option at this point. Having a town meeting tomorrow night is critically important. So I don't know if we want to stop, if there's any questions on this article.
Yeah, I think we'll stop here, and if you have any questions or comments you want to make, if you could come up to the microphone, state your name, and I'll start with anybody in here, and then we'll go to Zoom.
Sure.
And that's on this particular item?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go through each. So is there anybody?
Robert Atkinson Jr., 82 Elm Street, North Reading. My question basically is, what would be the fair market value of this property compared with the assessed value? Because I looked up on the property record card, it's assessed for a little over $641,000. So a purchase price of $650,000 is not unreasonable. That being said, I suspect the fair market sale, like as a real estate transaction as a single-family home, would be somewhat higher than that. Based on current market conditions, I would guess be somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000 to $800,000. So we're getting a bargain. That being said, I'm inclined to say yes, only because they're not making any more land, and I'm kind of in agreement with Scarlett O'Hara's father. Land is the most important thing because it's the only thing that lasts. So with that being said, I guess my question is, how was that price arrived at? Was that the person who's selling the land? Is that what they're asking for, or was there some other consideration?
Mr. Gilbert?
Madam Chair, through you, you are correct, both with the assessed value and the fact that multiple market sources seem to indicate the value higher than the price that we're acquiring it at. Again, we know that those market sources, and I'm talking the Zillow, the Redfin, the Realtor.com type things, there's a number of different things that go into the formula, but in multiple areas it's being identified as worth above $700,000. So you're absolutely correct with regard to that. This was an asking price, if you will, from the seller. They, through a mediary, approached the town with a proposal, and the select board accepted it in the third week of December, I believe, and scheduled a town meeting shortly thereafter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stratton?
My name is Rich Stratton, 16 Marshall Street. Could you put up the other slide with frequently asked questions, please?
Sure thing.
Okay, in a previous slide, you said that this property is going to be used for could be used for multi-use application. And you also said that there'll be a number of different committees that will make this decision. Do you plan on taking input from the townspeople as to what kind of facility they would recommend that be put in there? Like, for instance, on the community connection, there's been some discussion around putting a senior center or multi-generational facility there. Will these committees take into consideration the input from the town?
Madam Chair, through you. So first, I don't think I'm overstating it when I state that the intergenerational community center is probably the idea that's gotten the most discussion in recent years. I'm kind of looking to Ms. Mullen to see if I have that right, but that would include a senior center as a component of it. It's probably the project that's furthest along in a number of projects that are not, too far down, that process. The work of the Recreation Committee started all of that, and then also some parallel work by the Facilities Master Plan Committee. But I expect that, the multiple committees that I mentioned who have offered recommendations and who will likely be working, on this will represent multiple points where the public can interact with the planning process, can provide feedback. And I think the most important thing I need to stress is, whatever happens at that site, is highly likely to require town meeting approval. It's going to have to come back to town meeting for, it could be a transfer of care, custody, and control if that were even necessary. If an Article 97 relief, as I mentioned, were required, that would also need to come back to town meeting. Any funding that we might need to do something on the site is highly likely to require town meeting authorization. So there are, at least through those committees, through the town meeting process, and what I imagine is probably going to be a pretty robust public input process ahead of anything going to town meeting. I think the public is going to have plenty of opportunity to provide feedback, and honestly has through those different forums, and more recently an online survey that was posted where we got some feedback as well. So there will be plenty of opportunity for those discussions to take place. And it will be the town, through town meeting, that will make the decision.
Mr. Yule?
Jeff Yule, 427 Park Street. Bouncing off of what Mr. Stratton just mentioned, can the warrant be amended in such a way that it would define that the purchase of this property is for the sole purpose of a multi-generation facility, making sure that the seniors are included in whatever, in that property. All too often, like having a hockey rink there is a nice idea, but I don't think seniors are going to be playing that or going to be using it. But for that parcel that we're talking about, not the property around it that's still owned by the town, but that property would be put in the warrant for the sole purpose of a multi-generation facility. And the reason why I ask that, I mean, we all know what the seniors go through, have been going through at the senior center. Now, because programs have increased, did I hear correctly, you're using the Union, not the Union Congregational Church, but the, for which church it is. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought the mic was working.
No, that's only for cable.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so, anyway, what I'm saying is that to amend the warrant article to have the wording that this specific property would be used for the sole purpose of a multi-generational facility that would include seniors just by the wording of that, and still include the youth. And so, and I always think it's very beneficial that the youth and the seniors interact with one another, because a lot of times we're separated, okay, and they don't get to know each other. So I think that there's a big value there. And being that you've had to move over to the church because of increased activity, I think that might reassure the people that the property is going to be used for what a lot of people think it's going to be used for, especially the seniors. That's my question.
Mr. Gilberto?
Just quickly to the procedural question, the warrant itself cannot be amended at this point. Obviously, it's been mailed to everybody's homes. Could a motion be made that's limiting in the way you described? It certainly could be made. Whether or not the moderator would determine it to be within the four corners of the article, I don't want to speak for him. I don't know. But I would note that what is pretty clearly prescribed is, whatever motion it is would be limited to this one parcel, which is really only a portion of a bigger land area, and probably unlikely to house an intergenerational center on its own, given its size.
Mr. O'Leary?
First of all, this is only a half an acre, so it's very limited as far as its size, as its purpose. The way that the article is worded is for general municipal purposes. So it gives us wide flexibility as to what this particular parcel can be used for. And it's specifically not going to be included, as the rest of Ipswich River Park was, as parkland, which is very restrictive. So if we want to put an intergenerational center into the Ipswich River Park region, we have to jump through a whole lot of hoops. Not to say that we won't be doing that, but in order to effectuate that, we have to go the legislative route. We have to find additional land in the town to swap off to make it work. So there's a whole host of things to do. So we're specifically excluding this parcel for those purposes. We're giving us the widest flexibility for this small parcel, which is included with over 40 acres here, to allow us the maximum flexibility. Mr. Stratton's question, it's town meeting will decide what the future use of this property is going to be, whether it be an intergenerational center, whether it be a hockey rink, whether it be some other recreational facility, or whether it just remains open space. Town meeting will make the ultimate decision through the appropriation process, through an override process, and all the rest. This board may make some recommendations to you, or some of these other advisory boards, committees, and commissions will make a recommendation, but it's the town meeting. So town meeting will make the ultimate decision. So if you were to make a motion, as you're proposing, again, I was the moderator for a while here, sure, it would fall within the four corners of the article, but it would be foolhardy to do so, because then we would be restricting a half an acre of a 40-plus acre parcel for one specific purpose that we haven't even determined what we're going to do with it. We're best to allow us the greatest flexibility, and that's exactly what's being proposed for town meeting. Allowing the town, in future town meetings, the greatest flexibility to put it to the best use as to what the town and what town meeting determines going forward. And again, this could be a generation from now by the time something is done. But the land's only available now. We're grateful to the Wheelers, to Mr. Atkinson's point, offering us for assessed valuation rather than full and fair market value. It's in keeping with the wishes of Eddie Wheeler Sr., we bought two other parcels from back in the mid-90s. He made a commitment to the town, and his children are keeping to that commitment now, and we're extremely grateful for this opportunity, and we would hope that we get our quorum and people come out and support it. So, could the motions like that be proposed? Sure. Should it be passed? I certainly wouldn't support it, because it would be far too restrictive on a half an acre parcel. And what we're proposing here allows us the greatest flexibility.
To you, Madam Chair. So, if I'm hearing correctly, parcel is too small
It's a half an acre.
for such an idea, and therefore that would impact the potential of a multi-generational facility. So that tells me that that idea is not kind of going to fly because the property is too small. If you voted for that purpose, and you have property next to it, I would believe that, to loosely, as you described, you can combine property and therefore be able to build such a building.
Just from a procedural standpoint, it would appear that if you were to make a motion to amend, to use this land specifically for a specific purpose, whether it be an intergenerational center or a hockey rink, and that never comes to fruition, and the town meeting decides to do something else with all the other adjacent property, we wouldn't be able to use this property for any other purpose. So why would we do that to ourselves? So it doesn't preclude us from using for an intergenerational center, if that's what town meeting decides to do with the rest of the parcels. It doesn't preclude us from doing it. It actually enhances the ability for us to do it, because we wouldn't have to go through any other machinations with the legislature or anybody else. So it's not restrictive at all, the way this is being proposed. It's the highest and best use as to what the town and town meeting determines at a future date.
Is any motion we put on?
We're not gonna, we can't go back and
I'm
forth.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would really like to see the multi-generational facility there with children and seniors, and so that they can blend, because there's tremendous value for both. And again, if the warrant was put in as a multi-generational purpose for that facility, you can change it again. I mean, you can define it now, and you can redefine it later for something else, if need be.
May I?
That would become
I
a
think
deed
Mr.
restriction.
Studo had,
Okay.
was waiting.
The other thing to consider about not making it for one specific project, everyone wants an intergenerational center. We still haven't come up with a price tag. I will guarantee you, considering we have 3 million of capital projects that need to be funded way before that idea, that's gonna require an override. So I just wanna be clear that, let's say what you said passed, and let's say we had the will to push it, it's going to at first cost. It's gonna be short-term pain for long-term gain. I wanna make that clear. Because I think there's this idea, especially with the Facebook faithful, that if people want and wish for an intergenerational center, that we have the money to do it, and we don't. And I don't know what it's gonna cost, but I know that right now, 4,000 square foot houses are going for 2 million, so something like we need, saying it's gonna hit 10 is not out of the question, and we don't have it. And again, it's not a huge tax impact, but it will be a tax impact. I just feel that that needs to be said, because there's this idea that if we want that we have the money to do it, and we don't. So again, I'm looking at it that if you specifically say that parcel needs to be used for X, let's say we even have the space, and then we can't get the money through town meeting, now there's another reason why we have a parcel, because it's like, well, we're gonna have to try again in a few years because we voted it that this has to be, for better or for worse, an intergenerational center, and we just can't get the money for it. So I'm just looking at it that, again, it's, you know, we may end up having a lot of great ideas that people like, and we have to scale back for money. It might just end up more grass, because that could be the least of path's resistance.
And that's
But
not
we want that to be an option rather than, it, you know, just be, you know, a sore site for ex-board member Schultz for the next 20 years. So, you know, but it's the truth, that's how I look at it. That, again, let's say after we explore intergenerational center, hockey rink, pickleball, all the other things we've seen, what if we just don't have the money and we say, hey, for the time being, it's gonna run us a couple million, we're just gonna make it into more grass, or whatever that will be. So that's why I don't wanna pigeonhole the town, because it might end up being that simple. I don't know, sometimes it could be that, there's a very good chance it could be that simple. So I just wanna put that out there, because no one else has.
You just wouldn't want to put a deed restriction on yourself. Why would you do that? And again, a half an acre wouldn't even cover a parking area for an intergenerational center, never mind, you know, any other potential. So,
Rita, I'll recognize you after Mr. Yule.
I'll just add that by defining the intergenerational community center being there, you're preempting all of the other committees and the work they're doing to try to come up with various options to be used in that. So you'd be kind of cutting out from underneath them the very work they're trying to do. So it's just preemptive to take that away from them to be able to work on what should go in that site or what the options are. I actually think if you actually put that motion in at town meeting tomorrow night, you're going to ignite a negative vote from some people who just don't see that and don't want that, or haven't even had a chance to think about it. So I think it's just premature to put that kind of restriction on this property. It's just more space, an extra half an acre that we can use for a variety of different purposes in the future.
Yeah,
I'll just make this my last, so wonderful Rita can have some time here. To answer your viewpoint here, historically, many years ago, and Steve would be familiar with this, the generation at that time, our forefathers, required or designated the Swan Pond to be built for a school. And as time went on, when it came time to do that, it wasn't approved. And we renovated the Batch Elder in lieu of Swan Pond area. And I don't know what happened with Swan Pond, but that's not important at this stage. So, you know, planning for the future doesn't hurt. Okay, I'm not suggesting that the structure be built next year or something like that. We're not suggesting that, but if it's assigned that category, okay, it's there, there's a set potential plan for seniors. Unfortunately, what I'm hearing is that the seniors going to somehow be blocked out of this whole thing going forward. That's my fear.
No, that's
Okay.
not what we do.
That maybe not the intent, but that's my fear. Okay.
That's not accurate.
But it's an observation.
Just to be clear, the intergenerational center is for entities: vet services, parks and rec, senior center, and youth services. Those are the 4 entities that define an intergenerational community center. That's the same in Lexington. It'd be the same here. Just so it's clear.
Right. So,
In
I guess-
the purchase of this property, or the non-purchase of that property, does not impact the study that's taking place and the decisions that will be made in the future as to this is going to be utilized. The purchase of this property does not, whether we buy it or we don't buy it, doesn't change the conversation, it doesn't change the procedures, it doesn't change who the decision makers are. What the purchase of this property does is enhances the opportunity for whatever town meeting decides to do, whether it be an intergenerational center or something else. And it's only available to us now. But to place any additional restrictions on the deed for its use is probably ill-advised. For the very set purposes where we purchased land at Swan Pond for school purposes, and it was determined years later, and the school committee had to make this determination, that it was no longer needed and it now belongs to general government, not the school. So that property up at Swan Pond is now available for general municipal purposes. Again, Swan Pond, we took a lot of land up there, even beyond, up near the pond, to build a reservoir back in the 70s, and never did it, and we're not going to build a reservoir there. But we have a lot of open space there now, and we can use for general purposes, again, without the deed restrictions. So again, this small parcel just enhances what we already own. It's an opportunity that we should take advantage of, and really, to me, it doesn't even, the intergenerational center isn't even part of the equation here. It's an opportunity for the town to purchase a piece of land. It's directly adjacent to other land that we're going to have available for future use, to be determined by town meeting at a later date.
And to you, Chair, I didn't come here to say that's what I was going to do, was to make an amendment. It was a question that I had, if that could be done. It was brought to my attention, and I would ask the question. So thank you very
So
much.
the answer to the question is, yes, you can.
Yes, you can, but, and, you know, let's not forget, we've put a lot of tax dollars into the master facility plan that, there are ideas, a lot of ideas going on there and needs that we have. And anybody can inquire about that and what's been found out and what's needed in town. You could talk to Mrs. Summerlin about that. She's very knowledgeable on that.
Well, renovating the fire station is at the top of the list, so let's just keep that in mind. And doesn't come with small dollars.
Rita?
I'm going to practice being patient tonight. Let me know how I'm doing.
Yep, just remember to speak loud, because
I have to remember to speak loud? My God.
it's an
You think
issue.
it's ever been a problem?
It's an issue.
It is hard to hear in this room still.
Yeah.
Very hard. I hope we have 1,000 people there tomorrow. I hope we've reached a lot of people. And again, when you look on Facebook and different things, you get a lot of, you know, a lot of people both ways. So hopefully, I think Jeff's question was a good one to ask here, but I think all the answers were correct, that we do not want to pigeonhole ourselves. Recreation and LUC, which are 2 committees that I'm on. I was a member of youth services before also, and one of the things we're saying to everybody, every group needs to be open. We've worked with the facilities group, so they've got 3 groups now that have already talked about it and are studying all the different things they'd like to see, and hopefully when we're all done, hopefully this gets passed. If it was just, if that idea that Jeff suggested, if that was even possible, Tomorrow, you're gonna get 200 Bluebirds, 200 Girl Scouts, 200 Boy Scouts down there to say, let's call it a Boy Scout facility. And you're gonna lose that space. The reason that LUC and Recreation were interested in it is that 50.3 acres are under parklands, and this .5454 acres is going to be town-owned, which we said we hoped it should have to be, because if, what we talked about, you decided to go into generational, first of all, you need the frontage. We're going from 190 feet of frontage to 305 feet of frontage if we get the house, which means whatever we put on there, if the town decides to change it to intergenerational, makes it much easier to design, because when we did have the designs done back in 2013, there were only certain places you could use it because of the thin, long corridor, the rectangular that. Whatever this is, if it winds up being a recreational center facility, everybody needs to understand one of the things that's been very popular for a long time. It's not just for tots, it's not just for the youth, it's not for the schools, there'd be also a gymnasium in there, but times could still be used for, even if it's on recreational land, we still need to go to the state on the other parcels to be sure. If you ever tried to change it, still has to be a vote by LUC, a vote by Recreation, and a vote by the Hillview, that there's no need for it before you even go to legislation. So there are a lot of different steps. If we choose to not use that part for something else, Recreation and Parks and Rec and LUC don't have to allow parking for that, because there might be other things that Recreation and LUC are planning on doing with the other 5.5 acres on there. So I think you're right, you pigeonhole people, and if a lot of debate gets, so I'm just hoping that, you know, if people ask the question and they keep asking over and over again, people that want to hear what they want to hear there, and people that want to hear what they don't want to hear, it is confusing for them, and then after that, they say, well, it seems like you've asked that question 6 times, nobody knows what to do with it, even though you all gave the same answer. So hopefully, I think I applaud you with what you showed today. I went through and cut off a lot of things that are in mine, so I was hoping that you did, you know, say a lot of those things. If we keep repeating what are facts and what is true and what can be done, then everybody hears it and gets the vote. Even if there are 1,000 people that don't want it, hopefully, we change 900 votes before they leave to understand, you know, what that would be. And to the point of even being a one family house or 2-family house, if somebody buys it, when some people said 650,000 is too much, whether it's in great shape or not great shape, whatever the case may be, the new pupil expenditure figure that when we talked about Ipswich River Park back in 1992 was about $4,500 to $5,000 per student. Today it's $18,921. Is that fun? So if you had 10 children, you're going to put us out of town, and we'll bring in four more teens. But you don't make any money if for the time a house does come in. It's $8,500 pretty much that they were paying for taxes on that. And with one child, it's $18,000. If you get another 20 families in town, that number continues to keep going up because of the amount of children that have to go back to the school and get more teachers and more this and that. So the 2 options we have so far, wonderful. We've had other options. One of them happened to be we've met a number of times with members of the Skating Association. And even the Skating Association, we've explained to them, you can't come to the table, which people did years ago with $100,000 and wanted to donate it and make them all soccer fields back in '92. That didn't work. The same ones, they said they had a lot of interest in the soccer fields, skating fields, and they wanted to offer maybe $100,000 to do it. And what? The rest of the town picks it up. So we talked about the different things that were important, and we intend to stay in this property with something that's good for everyone. It doesn't mean that that one building has to take care of everything from tots to seniors, but you do try to put some things in that will take care of a lot of the citizens in town and what we do. So the recreation building, if it was a recreation building, there's going to be programs for adults. There's going to be a lot more programs just like what you said Kim Manzelli's doing. She's terrific. And as they are in the Recreation Department, that Nancy and they work together, really try to help each other out with whatever type of programs. Youth Services is doing a lot of mentoring with them. So I think whatever goes in on the recreational side, if it's that, and if it's the seniors, the same thing, you've got to work it, backwards. You still could possibly have a good senior center, and we're still talking to the Department of Revenue to see down the road, maybe what's with the rec annex now, if you could do the 2 sites, maybe you get some type of senior center or other things. But I think what Steve said is, we buy it, we put it there now, the groups continue to talk, and within a year, whatever group it is, one group handles it, or if it's a brand new committee made up, we talk about all those things at the time. And not just because the house is there, put something in. And it also encourages every one of us that have got to work together in all the departments, and you love the energy there. We find a second parcel in town to maybe do 2 things that we think are extremely important. To start to shoot out what the numbers are, $8,000 for a community center years ago is probably $20,000. But that's not something we're saying tomorrow to them, because we have not discussed that it's going to be a center. And hopefully tomorrow we keep it clean, talk about this thing, what the site is, why we need it, and not what's going in there. People can talk about it, but I mean, as far as that's not the place for it tomorrow, because we're only talking about the later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I believe Mrs. Minipelli is looking to try
Oh.
to speak, so I'm going to try to ask her if she can unmute and see if it will let her. Looks like it's not working, Madam Chair. Oh, yeah, I'll try to communicate with her by text message to see if we can get it to work.
Is anybody else on Zoom looking to speak?
There are other folks on Zoom, but if we're ready for that.
No, we're not ready for that yet. Is there anyone else in the room? Mrs. Herbert, did you have something you wanted to say? You're retracting?
Me?
No, Effie. She wanted to say something earlier.
I'm a great believer in less is more.
Is there anyone else in the room that would like to say something? I will apologize for,
Well, you don't have to apologize.
Thank you. We are not going to be able to take comment from the public, unfortunately, because if we unmute, we have obnoxiousness happening.
Is this one right here? The one over here?
I'm guessing.
I don't know what he is. Or A, down.
There you go.
So, Madam Chair, through you,
Yeah.
what I've done is when these comments are being made, I'm putting the folks in the waiting room. So, they're not here. And I'm not really sure how else to manage them without shutting the whole thing down, so.
Maybe that will work. I mean, Mike, that Melissa Austin said there's some valid comments in the,
Yeah, there are comments in the chat that I can.
maybe read those off.
do that.
Yeah, can we
Let's do
do
that.
that?
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and read the comments that are in the chat. If anyone else has something they would like to say for right now, if you could put it in the chat, and we can read it and try to answer your questions if you have them. But unfortunately, right now, we're being Zoom bombed, so.
So, Madam Chair, through you,
Yeah.
for those in the chat, disabled the ability to have the chat amongst the participants. So I will see the message, I will read them,
Okay, that
And
sounds
then
great, thank
we
you.
can go for that. So, from the top, a comment from Jeff Griffin, a Planning Commission member, asking whether a recommendation was being requested from the CPC. I believe they are meeting before the meeting to offer or and potentially offer a recommendation. So, so yes, I believe you have been asked, and I think the intention is to get that recommendation
Yes,
right
that
before
would be
town
great.
meeting. Next question, real estate taxes will not go, I believe it's supposed to be up with the property, with the purchase of the property. Will our taxes go up to fund whatever project gets approved? I think the answer to that, as we discussed, is that is a possibility, depending upon the scope of the project, the cost, whether or not there's any other outside funding. But until that's determined, it really is impossible to say for certain. Next question, will town residents have any say after the 4 committees decide what they think is best for that property? Question was asked before, I think we had that discussion, but as was stated, we expect that it will come back to town meeting. So that would be the strongest place for having say, but there will, I believe, and I suspect, there will be opportunity for input prior to that in the various board and committee efforts. Question was, what is the estimated operating cost for the projects being considered for this property? It would seem it will add expenses to the town budget, which will raise real estate taxes. I think the answer to that question is that we don't know at this point in time. There's been work done with regard to design, but it really hasn't advanced beyond that for some of these projects. But I do suspect that before something comes to town meeting, much as was the case for the middle high school project, we will have an idea what the operating cost would be at that point in time.
Just in relation to the article that's before town meeting, which is to purchase this land,
Yeah,
we don't know what else is gonna happen. Nobody knows what's gonna happen with 40, 50 acres that are there, and this extra half an acre, which gives us a tremendous amount of interest and egress and access. We don't know. And I think we need to be more clear. Town meeting will determine what the final use of this property is going to be. Not this board, not LUC, not recreation, not the facility master plan. We'll all make recommendations to town meeting to make a determination at a future date. So if people are concerned about adding additional operational costs for things, that's for a later date. What we're doing now is just taking advantage of an opportunity presented to us to add and land bank a parcel of land which is directly adjacent to Ipswich River Park property. So we're putting the cart before the horse as far as, what's going to go there. I can't tell you what's going to go there. Nobody here can tell you what's going to go there at this particular point in time until all the research is done and the presentations are made and town meeting makes a final determination. So it's just a question of, do we want to take advantage of this opportunity to add to our property here and land bank it for future use, for a future town meeting to determine what they want to do.
yes.
So I want to allay people's concerns,
And to Mr. Atkinson's point, if all we are doing is adding land, there's no more land being made. So, to just be able to acquire this, even if we do nothing with it, it's more land for our park. It's valuable for our park if we do nothing with it.
If we do nothing more with it,
Yes,
it's available.
right.
Madam Chair, through you, one more comment, reading from Amy D. I agree that this is a good, valuable property to own. With that said, when is the town going to reassess all the town-owned land we currently own, such as Swan Pond, Smith property? Yes, 9 Hill Street was addressed in your slides, but if that falls by the wayside, come spring, what happens? The town owns over 150 acre plus parcels. The select board continuously tells us we need revenue. My concern is every piece of property we buy takes more revenue away from us. So I can partially answer that, that I know that there are members of the Land Utilization Committee that are doing that top-down look of, I believe, every parcel that we owned, from what I've heard from them. So that is something that is being looked at. I expect it's probably more than a multiple month process to do that, given the effort that's being done. But I do know that even prior to this opportunity coming up, the LUC was, I believe, doing that. Not even necessarily with an eye to a specific project, but more, from what I understand, as an exercise in better understanding what we have and what we might be able to do with it.
Is
I
that
think
it?
that's the last of the chat comments for the moment.
So, a last call, if there's anybody on Zoom who wants to ask a question or make a comment about this article, Article 1, Central Street, please go ahead. We can't unmute because we are having a problem with that. So if you could put it in chat, we will try to answer you. If not, we're gonna move on.
Madam Chair, can I address just the Swan Pond, not Swan Pond, the Smith property? Do you want an answer for that or not? The one that brought up the,
Mr. Gilberto, was that?
Smith, Madam Chair, through you, Smith property was mentioned, yes, in
do
that
you want an
list.
answer on that or no?
I certainly.
Do you-
That's up
if
to
you-
Does it matter?
If you want to come up.
The LUC was involved in the Smith property also at the time of the selectmen, we were talking about it. And that one followed up a couple of incidents in town that were, lawyers got involved in. So when we looked at, and the schools were concerned with the overflow of students in the time, and the article when we went to town meeting was to say that we wanted to keep the Smith property in-house, hoping to look into trails and things, originally the way it was set up that we could do that, to stop the amount of housing on a street that was already Route 62 going to Middleton, busy street at the time, for the, maybe some of the same reasons why you could have done some of those housing units in Smith property, which bring a lot more children to school and everything else. So the reason we bought it was to preserve open space. It wasn't something that we bought with the idea that we said tomorrow we're going to rebuild it. It was somebody that everybody said protect the forests, be able to hopefully do walking paths or bike riding paths that would have worked had the original deal not changed before it got to town meeting. So there was a reason for that, and again, I think the sooner those type of questions are answered, we're not making up a story, it's a great question to ask. But we were hoping to save more money from expanding the tax base to expending more money on bills and protecting the forest. That was the reason for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
One other point on the Smith property is that was also restricted because it was considered a farm. So the town had the right of first refusal. The amount of tax dollars that the town was generating from that particular parcel was very small, minuscule, compared to what the proposal was going to be for multiple housing development there, which would impact,
Right.
negatively impact the.
Whether it was a bluff game or not, that's
Right.
what was said to us.
Right.
When they looked at it, this is what I'm going to put in there, this is why it's worth more, and if,
And in this particular case, again, very good point, is, we're basically taking $8,000 off the tax rolls. This piece of property currently pays $8,000, which they won't be paying anymore because the town will now become the owners. And what's the value of that to the town? $8,000, with a new house being built there, at $18,000 per kid, per household, it's a negative. It's a negative.
Right.
So currently, there are no children living in the household. So
Right.
not a bad deal. But family moves in there with 2 kids. It's $32,000 on an $8,000 tax bill. It's a negative cash flow if it's retained for its current use.
Yeah, I think that
But
needs
again,
to
the
be.
future use
Yes.
and the future value to the town far exceeds an $8,000 revenue stream to the community. So,
your 5 children at the same time, Stevie, in the 12 years of the school is only a loss of $86,130.
Right, so if you have someone like Mr. Studo
I
build a
wasn't
house
talking
there and have
apples.
5 children,
It's
it costs the town,
I have 4.
oh, 4, well, it might be 5.
We lost count.
You might have lost count.
I thought it was 7.
You probably pay a little more tax than this one. On the household, we'll say maybe you're a loss of $60,000.
My net.
Okay, but your kids are beautiful.
I
We
make
still
up,
love them.
I make up for it in retail spending.
All right, are we all set? We can
Thank you.
move on if nobody else has any questions or comments on Article 1?
I believe Mrs. Manupelli might be unmuted now. Can you hear
Okay.
us, Kate?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Welcome, Mrs. Manupelli.
Thank you. I caught most of that and I got disconnected and then I caught discussion about filling a house with 5 children. So I'm not sure how the conversation, when I got cut off, led to that, but that's interesting. So I missed the in-between, but that's okay. I did want to say thank you to Rita directly though for bringing this opportunity to the town, bringing this opportunity and actually helping work to make it come to fruition, to at least bring it to town meeting floor. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right. And I will echo that, Mrs. Mullen. Thank you for bringing this forward to us. It's a great opportunity, and I hope that the town sees it that way. So are we ready to move on to the next article? Mr. Gilberto?
Chair.
You better pass, I promise Nancy I'd buy it if the town didn't.
So,
I forgot my word, but I know I don't have money, I just thought it say.
Article 2 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2024 town operating budget. We are not proposing any amendments at this point in time. It was held there as a housekeeping article, and the recommendation will be to pass over the article. Article 3, which is amending the fiscal year 2024 town capital budget. There are 3 projects that are proposed for supplemental funding. First is $515,000 for water tower painting. This is a project that was initially authorized for Swamp Pond water tower, but for which investigation revealed the likelihood that rather than making patch repairs, a more extensive resurfacing was going to need to take place. So we're requesting $515,000, with $200,000 to be funded by water enterprise retained earnings, and $315,000 to be funded from water infrastructure stabilization fund. Because of the expense, we have a hybrid request looking to relieve some funding in the retained earnings as we get to the end of the fiscal year. The second project, $250,000 in supplemental funding to be funded from free cash for the fire department renovation design development phase expenses, including $200,000 for required owner's project manager services and $50,000 for additional designer services. Again, the funding source to be free cash. For those who don't know, the initial $785,000 for this phase of the design is funded using American Rescue Plan Act funds approved by the Select Board in the fall. And then finally, the third component, $68,750 from free cash for design and construction at the North and Central Street intersection. $50,000 of that is additional funding beyond what was authorized in June of 2023. That is to cover largely expected to cover a berm to be adjusted on the left-hand side as you're coming north on Central Street to try to improve the sight line. $18,750 of that is in place of bond proceeds from prior borrowing that were ultimately unable to be used for this project. Did I get that description right, Mrs. Geller? Thank you. The Select Board has, I believe, may not have recommended, but will be asked to recommend, and I hope will recommend. The Capital Improvement Planning Committee reviewed these projects earlier in January. They have provided a memorandum recommending the article, and then the Finance Committee has also voted within the past 2 weeks to recommend the article as well.
So again, if we have some public comment in the room?
Yes.
Yes?
If you don't mind. 2 questions.
Can you come up?
Sure.
Thank you. State your name and...
Pat Fillmore, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace, North Reading, Massachusetts. 2 questions. This article, does it need a 2/3 vote? Okay, so town meeting could evacuate the 185 people and leave 4 board members and 2 of the workers.
You need 150.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying, does it need the 2/3 for these things? You need 150 for the continuation of this, or just on the, you know, you need
You need 150
for the whole town meeting?
for the whole
Okay,
town
but
meeting.
it doesn't need a 2/3 vote?
Correct.
Okay. Second question, some of these projects, such as the fire department renovation, you're hiring a project manager for a project that hasn't even been approved yet. So why are we paying this money out to get these things that we don't even know if the town's going to approve?
If I could let Mr. Gilbert address that.
Through you, Madam Chair. We don't necessarily love it either, in terms of the requirement, but it is a recommended best practice to have the project manager on board. I have been part of a project where the owner's project manager was brought on after the design was completed, and I can tell you what it resulted in was the need to conduct, it was not in this community, by the way, to be clear, talking about another community that will remain unnamed. But when you don't bring the project manager in until the very end, the challenge you end up with is they are obligated to conduct their own assessment of the design, and now you're playing catch up. And what I saw in that other community was that you ended up having to adjust a design that was all but final, very late in the process, and what it did was add expense, believe it or not, and add time to the process. So we feel that this is the right time.
I understand, but now, again, are we talking all this monies for the renovation of the fire department that was just done 12 years ago, I think?
No.
Or is this talking about doing a new fire station and use the old one as a substation?
Sure, Madam Chair, through you. So this is a renovation project limited to the existing fire station on Park Street. I think that the work that you're talking about that goes back to 10 or 12 years was a new apparatus floor that was done.
There was a lot of renovations done.
There was a very extensive police department renovation that happened on only the police side of the building. It didn't renovate the existing fire department, so we're not really touching the police side other than the need to move some HVAC equipment that's on the roof of the fire department right now. But there has not been an extensive renovation of the fire department. We did some, what I'll say, maybe quality of life work within the past 10 years. Tried to do, I believe, some flooring that we did, maybe some painting, replace some furniture. And there was work done on the kitchen up there, but I think that we're talking, you know, in the $200,000 or less range. This is a much more extensive code compliance renovation project, among other things, you know, anticipated to be, you know, in the magnitude of over $20 million at this point.
Okay, I just keep hearing a lot of money being involved in this renovation of the fire department that's sitting on wetlands that we used to skate on as a kid. You know, I mean, come on, a lot of money. And I think at one point it was over $20 million that they were looking for.
It is. I think the projection we
26
had.
million? You look at some of these surrounding towns such as Tewksbury. Tewksbury paid, I think it was $18 million for a brand new fire station this year. I mean, it's been in the process, but it's opening this year. So 18 million for a brand new state-of-the-art fire station. And we're gonna spend 26 million on renovations of an old one. I have a problem with that. You know, and there's other towns. I mean, there's Chelmsford, I think, was another one. I think there's 5 or 6 towns that have just put in brand new state-of-the-art fire departments for less than $26 million.
Mr.
Madam Chair,
Gilberto.
those are great points, Mrs. Fillmore. I mean, these are, yeah, I don't know the timing of those projects, but I can tell you that on the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, we have seen a rapid escalation in
And I
both
agree.
construction and equipment costs.
I agree.
You know, you have, I'm not an architect, and I'm not charged with coming up with a cost estimate, but if I were, it would be very challenging to do at this point in time, and I would probably be erring very far on the side of caution with the number. I will say that the great thing about it is this project requires competitive bidding whenever it does happen, and we will be obligated to go with the lowest bidder out there. And I think our hope is that whatever we seek for the construction appropriation, the bids are far less than that, but we won't know that until we
But
get that
even
point.
26 million, you can, I mean, like I said, you know, they just built Tewksbury for less than 18, or 18 in that ballpark. $26 million will buy you, or build you a state-of-the-art fire department. If you look at the surrounding towns that have done it. $26 million to renovate something, and that's a little absurd if you ask me. But
Mr. O'Leary?
What we're asking for with this article is for taxpayers to use their free cash, which is basically a savings account, to get the best available information to town meeting in June to make a determination if they want to move forward with the renovation project or not. What this does is, again, we've used the federal money to get the plans going, get the design plans done, and this is what we need now to complete that project for June town meeting, so town meeting can make an informed decision. Okay, so we can discuss the merits of the renovation, purchase some land, or use some town land and build a new facility. That's for another day. What this does is, with the plans that we move forward with after the master plan study committee has looked at it, and this is what we want to propose to town meeting for consideration. We want to be able to get to them the best available information, up to date, and cost figures, and have a project manager on site with us now, working with the architects to make sure that we're not going to be underestimating it and have our own sense of eyes and ears there. So what this is invest $250,000 to get the best possible information to make an informed decision in June. This doesn't mean that you're necessarily endorsing the project yet. What you're endorsing is the ability to have the best information available for town meeting to consider. That's all this is. Again, I understand some people say they don't like the merits of it anyway. You say, you know what, let's cut our losses now and move on. But that's really what we're looking for.
okay, but we also have to get and let the people know $26 million to renovate, or $26 million to, because if you tell people it's going to be 26 or approximately $26 million to renovate an old fire department, which really isn't old, but they're going to laugh you out of town, because they're not going to spend $26 million on a fixer-upper.
But again, the town meeting will have the best information if we appropriate the money tomorrow, the best information to make an informed decision. And that's all we're asking for.
Mr. Wallner, did you still have?
I was just going to say, I did a tour with the master planning committee, and we went through the fire station and talked to the architect, and we talked all about the renovations. At the end, it may have been me or someone else, asked the question, wouldn't it just be easier to build a new one? And he said the cost of that would be far greater than renovating what you have right now. What's that?
Than $27 million?
Whatever the figure is, what he said was, relatively speaking, building a new one would be far greater than renovating what you have right here.
Right.
So that was very clear.
And that's a good point, until you hear what the cost of renovating the old fire department is. And then you say, wow, that's $26 million.
No, that was, the renovation cost was known at that time. So what he was saying was that the renovation cost versus building out a new one, building out a new would be far greater expensive than renovating what we have. Doesn't matter when you put that today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, the differential was there. And that was very clear. And the architect would love to build a new one versus renovating, because renovating is difficult. So I believed him.
Mr. Studo?
So I think the other discrepancy, Mr. Gilmore, may be that this was contracted out and bid in 2017. For a normal single-family construction, average cost since 2017 to build is 50%. That's without any special project. So just like I know people that home price they bought here in 2015, their house is worth 120% more. If you use those statistics, I can tell you today, Tewksbury would be nowhere near 18. They'd probably be closer to 40. So that's, and again, we don't want to spend extra money. If we can find somebody to do it less, like it's not like we don't want to spend, but if that's what the bids are, that's what the bids are. And if the alternative is not to do it, well, that's not, you know what I mean? So again, no, I understand. I just think that really that, and you see it in everything though, right? You're seeing it in municipal cost, you're seeing it in single family homes, you're seeing it. It's, Why does it take $850,000 to build a 2,500 square foot brand new construction now versus $450 5 years ago? But guess what? You go find me a contractor that'll build you a new house, $450,000, $2,500 with the land included, and I'll find you a unicorn by tomorrow morning. So, thank you.
Yeah. To Mr. Studo's point, yeah, I mean, Tewksbury, you know how slow government moves.
Oh, I know.
So that, those prices were, you know, a long time ago, that,
Yes, but
you know, to his point, if that was starting now,
right.
it would be a $40 million project.
No, and I'm well aware of it, and Tewksbury could have gone back and asked for more money if the prices had gone up, because if they just finished it, and the money was appropriated. But
Correct.
I'm still saying $26 million, that's a little bit, well, I don't know, I'm not gonna
The
argue.
fact is, no matter what we have to do, it's gonna be very expensive, and it's gonna require
Oh,
town
I
meeting
know,
approval
Steve.
and an
I'm aware of
override.
that.
You know, so the town will make a determination of what they wanna do. But we wanna make sure that we have the best available, up-to-date information so that we can make an informed decision, and this is what we need to do it. You know, and those decisions are gonna be made shortly. But I mean, in order to get that information, make sure it's accurate, we need this.
And to clarify, you're not endorsing the fire department, but this is just to appropriate, right? Mr. Yule, and Abiel, you're next.
Speak up and get more.
I'm old now.
Turn it around, Dr. Bud.
Trust me. Okay, maybe I should do this. But, okay, so I'm a little confused on something. At one point, we're talking about $26 million, and we have up there $250 million coming from free cash.
$250,000.
250,000.
150,000, okay, but the whole project is 250,000, right?
We don't
No.
know
No.
the project.
This is just for the design plan.
This
It's a design.
Just
So
to appropriate money
$250,000
for the design.
Which strikes me as an awful lot of money.
Can I just interject 1 second? So, Mr. Yule, but let me just, for this purposes, because I've heard some, we in no way, shape, or form have anywhere near the information to answer anything on the actual renovation right now outside of the preliminary cost. So
That's
meaning
fine.
that, but what I mean is that, like, if that's what it turns into, then it's an unfair discussion because we don't have it in front of us. I just wanted to state that.
And that's my question, okay? So feel safe about that. It's just that for the project manager, it is how much? How much for the project manager?
It's $200,000 for this phase.
$200,000 for a project manager seems like an awful lot of money, even though it might be a small amount relative to the whole idea. And project managers seem to make a lot of money off towns, and that always bothers me. But I'm going back to when I was on the board, when we did some renovations at the fire station. Steve goes way back before me. There's been renovations even then. The fire station has been subjected to a bunch of patchwork programs. And we continue to do patchwork on that station. And I think it's time for the town, the select board, a special committee to come down with a program, a plan, a real tangible plan for the fire station. We know the town is growing, and it's going to continue to grow. And by spending money on patchwork items that probably through the years are now probably added up to some unrealistic figure. And it's unfair to the town to keep doing this patchwork when really a more defined plan for a fire station in the town needs to be given. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Mrs. Hurlbut, please come up to the microphone.
Madam Chair, through you.
Yes.
And Mrs. Minipelli is unmuted as well, waiting to speak.
That's really loud, you're on this side, you can't.
Yeah, okay. Abby Hurlbut, Chair, Fire Station, Building Committee. Chair Finance Committee, Chair Facilities Master Plan. There's a group of us, including the firefighter, members of my committee, several firemen, the town administrator, and a number of other townspeople who have been working on the fire station gut renovation. This is not a renovation like let's put new wallpaper in the dining room. This is a gut renovation. The fire station will have to have temporary quarters while this occurs. There are a number of reasons for doing this. One of the reasons is to expand the equipment bay, because at the moment, fire trucks have to be special ordered so they're small enough to fit in. The other thing that's happening is the front doors are going to change. The columns that were in the original construction are such that when the fire trucks try and open their door, they bang into a support column. There has not been adequate safety design for firefighters. When they come back from the fire, they come back with a lot of chemicals and everything else on them. So the equipment bay floor is considered a hot zone. At the moment, modern fire stations usually have an area where you can transition, shower, change into decent clothes, into regular clothes, get rid of your firefighting stuff, and then go up into what's called a cool area, which would be your living spaces. This is not a situation we have in our existing fire station, and it is very important to the well-being of our firefighters to have those kinds of things. There are a number of other elements to the new design. One of them includes increased sleeping areas, and the way the new design is, each firefighter will have a cubicle with a door that closes. Now, one of the reasons for doing that is because we have to hire firefighters off of the list, and if some of them are female, then we're going to have female firefighters, which wouldn't be a bad thing at all, but then you have a problem of, hey, we don't have a female bathroom. We don't have, right now, it's basically a bunk room in the top of the firehouse, and it's pretty discouraging. We have talked at length with the fire chief as to what he foresaw the needs of North Reading from the standpoint of a central fire station going forward, and what he anticipated could at some point be the number of firefighters. And that has been factored into the equation of what the sleeping and the living areas should also be. So this has been a well thought out project that's been going on for about a year or so. The request for the $200,000 for a project manager, this is not some dude that just says, yeah, okay, fine, checks off a few things. This is somebody that's basically on site every day. It's also somebody that takes the construction estimate from the architect and has his people, the operator, the program manager's people, his staff, also look at it and see if these are realistic figures. He also will pre-check, I can't think of the word exactly for it, for construction contractors. And what this does is it means that should town meeting approve this project in June, that we would have pre-approved contractors that we would send out bids to. For every month that we postpone this project, you're looking at 1% to 2% increase in costs, and that assumes that costs are just sort of standard increases as opposed to ginormous increases. So this is a very time sensitive and a very important project. And but I think it's, the other thing is that there's no centrally available land on which to put a primary fire station. Now, I'll also tell you that Middleton has been planning a new town center, quote unquote, which is a fire station, a fire police complex, and a town hall community center complex. And they went and voted a whole bunch of money for it about 4 years ago. They just came back from a special town meeting a couple of months ago Their project is well in excess of the money that originally voted, and they've asked for $10 million more. And in addition to that, they've also had to cut back their project by a substantial amount. So, for example, they took one of the equipment bays out of their fire station. It hasn't been pretty, and more projects are finding that what they hoped that they could accomplish for their community by way of an infrastructure project has had to be severely curtailed and downgraded because it simply is ridiculously expanding costs for such a project. So that's one of the reasons why it's important to go forward with this. We did have 2 pieces of property in town that might have been reasonable for a fire station. Neither one of those properties didn't pass muster with engineers. The other property was not purchased by the town. There's nothing else at the moment that's centrally located. It is ultimately, going forward at some point, the idea of putting a small West Side fire station, but at this point, a primary fire station really needs to take precedence.
Right, but now you're talking.
If we could not talk back and forth, if you want to come up to the microphone, are you all set, Mrs. Harper? Thank you for all of that information.
No, I thank you for all that information too. But now you're saying all these renovations that have to be done to the fire department, you're still talking relocating the fire department, so that's going to be another big expense. And then, where you could build a new one and keep the fire department where they are at the moment. And that would just be common sense to me.
Yeah.
And on this money here, the $250,000 for your project manager, and I understand fully where project manager is that going to be the whole total cost that you're paying him for the building?
No, it's to get us through the bid process. And the 250 is not totally for the project manager.
Well, that's what I'm saying, okay.
It's just slightly less than 200, and it's for what we've been calling Phase 1, which takes us through June town meeting.
Okay, so your project manager cost is going to be a whole lot more than what you're talking about when this project gets if it in fact gets under the works, right?
It will be more, yes.
A lot more.
I don't know that it will be tons and tons more.
But even if you were going to build a new station, you would have to have that project manager.
You still need, and I
Regardless.
understand totally what a project manager is and what he does, totally.
Thank you, Mrs. Hurlman.
You're welcome.
Would anyone else like
Mrs.
to
Minipelli.
speak? Oh, Mrs. Minipelli, are you still there? Did you want to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to add to that. I think based on the cost of the project, I think the design of the procurement requirement is to have a project manager that has the proper qualifications on board. And so we have to do this whether we're redesigning the existing station or making a new building. And it would be wonderful to make a new building, but it's cost prohibitive, and I think we all know that. I think with Mrs. Fillmore, with those examples, it was already said. I think the one for Tewksbury was actually bid in 2017, way before COVID and the current crazy price increases. The other project that you mentioned, I think, was Chelmsford, and their bid came in at a range of 15 to 20 million, to do something quite similar to what we're doing, which is renovating. But, we're really just talking about it. I just want to draw it back to the basics, just like the acquisition of the land adjacent to IRP. This is really for public safety. We need not only to be able to house our equipment that we're spending money on buying and upkeeping and maintaining, but also we have a fire force that needs better living quarters while they're there performing their shifts to protect the community. And there were many opportunities for people to walk through, and I'm sure that, if you called them and asked to walk through, they might let you if it's coordinated as about the safety issue. But this is the bottom line: is the men and women that we have, or will have in the future, will have really proper living quarters for when they're performing the shifts on behalf of the city. It's the right thing to do. It's a huge amount of money. I agree with Mrs. Fillmore, and I'm concerned with, you know, the frequent asks back from designer, but those are controlled. The amounts are really fixed by statute, given the nature and the size and the scope of the project. I think when someone comes in with the design, it's managed by a certain percentage of the project cost. The OPM is required. So I think it's important for us to kind of draw back to the reason why this is done, and also thank the volunteers on these numerous committees that have really just taken hours upon hours upon hours of time to study this, study different options, study different plans, meet with people, walk through, do the meetings with the chief to hear what needs to be done. And this has been in planning and, you know, review since before COVID. Unfortunately, we can all appreciate that, you know, now with the current costs and the way things are, the projects are exponentially higher in cost than they were 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, or even 3 years ago. So hopefully people will look at the, you know, the purpose for this is really, when it boils down to it, public safety, just like the purpose for acquiring more land next to our jewel, Switch River Park. The purpose is to get that land. You know, this is the purpose of this one, and hope people will be in favor of it, because it's so important to get that place renovated, and it's so important to get proper living quarters for the members of the staff that we have there and the members that are going to come on board in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Manu Pelli. All right, anyone on Zoom? Nope. Are we still doing chat?
Madam Chair.
What, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair.
Yep. Yes.
Well, I'm sorry, there's one more piece of this that is really a key to the planning. And I know Mrs. Herbert went over a lot of this, but there's a hazard mitigation location that they need there too, that's going to be an up-to-date to help them in the rear. I think it's proposed, and that's an expensive upgrade that's necessary, again, for the safety of the members of our fire force.
Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Hurley did touch on that. I mean,
yeah.
I think anybody who has gone to an open house, you know, knows any firefighter that works in that firehouse, it's not a question if this is necessary. It's absolutely necessary. If you saw the way that they're operating in there, and to that point, you know, that hazardous, what is it called, Mrs. Hurlbut? Is there a specific name for that?
Decontamination zones.
Decontamination zone, absolutely necessary. I mean, you know, they need to be able to do that after a fire. So I don't think anybody's questioning that this has to be done.
I'm not questioning the fact that we do need a fire department. My question is, you're going to take this half of the police and fire station and renovate that half in wetlands. I mean, if you're going to go back or if you're going to go up, isn't it going to be, and maybe it will be a little bit more than 26, but at least you're getting a state of the park without, you know, gutting the whole building. Because if you're gutting the whole building, you might as well put a new one in. Whereas you can house the fire temporarily there until the new one is built.
So I think
And
that
then
that's
just keep the other one for substation.
I think that that's a conversation for another day, because right now we're really just focusing
Yeah, I mean,
on.
I'm just saying, that's my thought. You know, my question was, do we have to spend that money on it now? Okay, you tell me that you need a project manager.
Yeah.
Is that 200 or 250 going to cover that project manager through this whole project?
No, through phase
No,
one.
it's not. It's going to be a whole lot more money. So now you're talking.
Which would have to happen no matter what, and you're saying we need a fire station.
We do
That
need
project
we do need a
manager
project manager. Right.
is necessary no matter
And
what.
I totally understand that. I've got family in construction, totally understand that.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Anyone on Zoom? Okay, Mr. O'Leary?
You know, the board
I'm
recognizes,
using Dixie Text Call to convert your voice to text and respond to you. If you want to continue, please.
All right, well, that's better than what I thought it was going to say. I was very scared.
much better.
This was a nice one.
It was.
The board recognizes, and we have the Facilities Master Plan Committee, we have a problem with the fire station, the current fire station, the way it currently exists and operates. And major renovations have to take place or replacement in total, one way or the other. We were very fortunate that we had American Rescue Plan Act funds available to actually step up the pace to address a situation that needs addressing now. And again, the longer we delay, the more it's going to cost us to do it. You know, to Mr. Yule's point as far as, Band-Aid approach to things, we can't put a Band-Aid on this anymore. We need to expand the current station and our capacity in the station in order to house and man and operate the fire department as it currently exists, never mind how it's going to exist in the future as the town expands. So we recognize that the ARPA funds were available and we're appropriating, $750,000 to do this. And now, as we find out, we're about $250,000 short. If we had gone to town meeting and asked the town meeting for $1,035,000 or $1 million to do this, we'd be having all this discussion anyway. What we're doing now is we're addressing the situation in relation with all the professional experience that we've hired to advise us what's the best approach. New construction, renovations. We've gone through that step. It's renovations. So here's the plan. We need $250,000 in order to get our eyes and ears and someone with our best interest involved in the project now, between now and June, so that we can get town meeting the best information to make an informed decision moving forward. And that's what we're looking for. Fortunately, 75% of the funding here for this has already been paid for with your federal tax dollars that was made available to the town to get us to a point where we can make an informed decision and move forward on a project that needs to be done. So I think it's a small price to ask to use some free cash that we have to get the expertise in place to get town meeting to the point where they can make an informed decision. And whether it's a new or renovated, what's going to be presented is a renovation. But this will get us the true figures as to what we're looking at and ready to go out to bid. And have someone on staff for us, 24/7, with their staff, to look out and oversee the architectural drawings and their estimates. So that's what's important. So, small price for us that we're asking for $250,000 to move the project forward, and town meeting will make that determination whether they want to or not. But give us the tools to do it, and that's what's being asked for.
Thank you. All right, anyone else?
I have 3 motions, just so you know.
Mr. Atkinson.
Oh, Mr. Atkinson, please.
Again, Mr. Robert Atkinson Jr., 82 Elm Street. This is what we engineers call bounding the problem. You need to have a plan before you can start talking about costs. So having a preliminary plan design will help us get a better handle. Do we need to do replacement or renovation? Compare costs of each approach. So if we have to spend $250,000 to come up with a plan that gives us some basis for discussion, I think that's money well spent, rather than just guessing. Again, the whole concept of a project manager and the design money, the $50,000 for the design, is so we can get a handle on what this is going to cost either way. One of my big concerns about renovation, and again, that's a future item at a future town meeting when we have a more defined number, is often renovation. You start tearing down walls and you find things that cost extra money. I've been through this. My dad developed some property years ago, and he had me working, tearing out walls, and we find things. So that's the question. And then, of course, the side of building from scratch is where are we gonna put it? How are we gonna buy the land to put a new station? You know, because we're gonna have to buy the land if we don't have a parcel available in the town, that the town already owns. So, all these things can, have to be discussed, but I don't think we're there yet. We need to get a better handle on, you know, defining the problem before we start discussing which way we want to go. This is just to sort of define what the problem is and get us a little bit closer to having that other discussion. So, you know, if that's what it takes in order to get a better handle on things, then that's money well spent. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you for your 2 cents. All right. Are we ready to move on?
So I got 3 motions. Are we going to do those tonight or no?
Three motions, you said?
Have we already done them? Because I have a, recommendation for Article 1, recommendation for Article 2.
So I believe you already recommended Article 1, so that was
So we're good?
an oversight. Article 2 should be a motion to recommend passing over. So yes, I would ask the board if
Okay.
it so wishes to vote that.
Okay?
We're gonna close the public hearing.
Yeah, we're going to close the public hearing.
Okay.
And we have a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to recommend passing over Article 2, amend fiscal year 2024 operating budget.
Second?
I have a motion and a second by Mr. O'Leary. We need to do roll call because Mrs. Manupelli is now present on Zoom. So, Mr. O'Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Wallner,
Aye?
Mr. Studo,
Aye.
Mrs. Manupelli,
Aye.
and the chair is aye.
Then Article 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Should be a
Madam Chair, I move to recommend, amend fiscal year 2024 capital budget. That's it. Article 3, sorry. Article 3, amend fiscal year 2024 capital budget.
Second?
I have a motion and a second by Mr. O'Leary. Mr. O'Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Wallner,
Aye?
Mr. Studo,
Aye.
Mrs. Manupelli, Mrs. Manupelli?
Aye.
Oh, thank you. And the chair is aye.
Madam Chair, through you, 2 items that relate to the motions that will be offered at town meeting. The first is, as I have been saying, we've been talking about $650,000 being the number. That is the exact amount of the sale. The intention is to cover any legal fees or title-related expenses out of the town council budget, so that would come to you separately for approval at a future select board meeting. So we're just appropriating that. We're not appropriating funding for any work on the property,
Right.
or in any way, shape, or form. It's purely the acquisition cost. In the past, we have had a motion that has sought authorization for the board to be able to convey property in the future, should it wish to do so. So we did that with the Mill Street property. We did that, no, actually, that was a separate appropriation, I think we did, but we did it for the turkey farm. We had it as the ability to convey it. I don't know what the desire of the board is, whether it wants to seek approval not only to acquire, but to be able to convey. I talked briefly with town council. It certainly could go, either way, but in this instance where there are already a lot of questions, I don't know whether the board really doesn't want to leave that open as another question about what might happen in the future. But you certainly could, if you wanted to. So we can discuss that now. We could decide that going into the meeting tomorrow night. But the motion as drafted was fairly expansive and included that capability in it.
Oh, okay.
But again, it doesn't need to be offered that way. It could be without that portion of it. So I don't know if the board members have feedback on that.
So that could come at a later time, or it could be put into the motion.
So if you got that authority to convey the property, it would be limited to this one parcel. So from the same reason we discussed, the other 2 parcels you won't be able to convey. You don't have that authority. Plus you got the Article 97 restriction anyway.
Right.
So I just felt this was probably the time to bring that up.
Do you want to have a discussion on that, or Mr. O'Leary?
Yeah, I think we should get authorization from town meeting to acquire, and if necessary, dispose of the property, future date to the board. determine that that's what's in the best interest. We did the same thing with Mill Street. You know, and now we're gonna be able to dispose of it, because we don't need it, because we didn't go to MWRA. We don't have to go back to town meeting to, we can just, we purchased it, we don't find have a use for it anymore, we can then put it back on the tax rolls, you know, at a later date. So just provide all the options now, take care of it, and move on. That's my own feeling. There's maximum flexibility with the town moving forward, including the board, and future boards. You know, if for some reason you want to get that out of the Parks and Recreation area or the whole thing, and you want to segregate a parcel and sell it for some reason, the town will be able to do it with just this one parcel. And I think it should be a better practice and policy probably moving forward. That as we acquire property,
If it's not used.
give the opportunity to future boards to dispose of their property if it's no longer used without having to go through the whole machinations of town meeting approval or legislative approval or anything else.
Mrs. Manupelli, did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, do you have an opinion on that?
I missed the earlier discussion about why the motion was necessary, so.
Madam Chair, through you,
Yeah.
to offer a brief explanation. With prior transactions, we have sought both the authority to acquire the property and with it, the ability to convey the property at a future point in time. Or dispose of the
Right.
property. And the question was, does the board wish to seek both authorizations in this vote at this town meeting? Or does it wish to leave the authority to convey or dispose of the property to a future town meeting?
Right, and I mean, I heard all that, I'm sorry, Madam, through you, Madam
Yeah.
Chair. Madam Chair, can
Yeah.
you hear me?
I can, yep, go ahead, please.
I heard all the discussion when Mr. Yule was asking about, you know, restricting it and, you know, the acquisition for general purposes and the discussion on the various uses of it. But I think the whole purpose of acquiring it for general purposes is if at some point we have to divest of it, that allows us to do that. But I think we should, my opinion is, if after all this, that's what we decide to do, we should go back to town meeting, because I could see a number of different possibilities for divesting of it, not the least of which is continue it as an affordable housing unit on behalf of the town's affordable housing stock. So there's a number of conceivable ideas if town does have to end up divesting of it, but I think that should come back to the town meeting floor for consideration. Not be done right now in this vote. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Rita, do you have input on this?
Just on that, wouldn't you consider if you weren't gonna use it for something right in the town, that you would sell it back to recreation, or whatever, recreation obviously have.
We could anyway. Yeah, we would do that anyway. We wouldn't have to convey it. Yeah, we wouldn't have to convey it. We're just talking about a disinterested third party.
Thank you.
For you know, Madam Chair, through you,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, and this is my personal opinion, I did speak with Mr. O'Leary earlier. You know, I think that we've heard a lot of, you know, questions about, you know, we don't know what we're going to be doing with the parcel. It might be leaving one additional question open if we have the authority to convey it out on the table now versus at some point in the future, we'll come back and ask that. I haven't researched the town meeting votes. They may have provided us the ability to convey the other two parcels that are connected here. But even if they did, they're restricted because of the Article 97 issue anyway. We really
Right.
wouldn't be able to do anything with them. So in a world of trying to, you know, provide certainty for those who are voting tomorrow night, not having that language would provide the most certainty.
I'm hesitant to bring this forward because I think it's going to confuse people tomorrow night. I think we should just stick with what we have and go with that.
I mean, I see both sides to it, but I didn't think as clearly on that what Mr. Wallner said, though, just because I think that, yeah, keeping it simple, because I just feel that my only concern is that that is one thing we could do with it, and then that opens up the door for discussions no one's prepared for, and then it becomes this, like everything, it's like, then we're not even talking about that anymore. It's like, we've already moved on, paid for it, and it's ours, but we don't even own it yet. And it's kind of like, buying the stock on market. I don't really own it, but I'm just gonna talk about it, and like, that's the fear. So I see that point, and yeah, for that, yeah, maybe we wait. Just because it is an option, and I think we made it very clear, we don't want to talk about the options tomorrow. Tomorrow's more of, we want it because it's a great opportunity.
We're buying land.
Yes. And more importantly though, and I think that Mr. Gilberto made the great point that it's continuous. It's there. It's attached to something that we already not only own, but use a lot. So it's not, all due respect to some of these other properties, this one is much clearer. I mean, it's not, like for example, I did not know that the Smith property was really seems like stop development as one of the primary objectives. But it makes more sense now because it's like, well, why would the town buy this? It really is. Where here, it's pretty obvious where if I just told someone the town owns this, I think it can click to a reasonable person that, well, that makes sense. They own everything else here. So,
Madam Chair, through you, to short circuit all this, I think I've opened a door unnecessarily because the warrant article isn't even written to authorize disposition.
Okay,
So
so
it's not
that
even-
ends the
it's not even possible.
conversation. I think we
I'm
had a
actually gonna
majority
motion it. I thought you were gonna do a
anyway.
motion or something.
I think we had a majority of the board
Yeah.
anyway that was choosing not to, so,
But I think I've opened up a discussion that it wasn't even,
Okay.
it was an option for another parcel because it was written in a warrant article
okay,
for that purpose. It's not even written in
All right.
here, so.
okay. So we,
Madam Chair?
yes, Mrs.
Madam Chair,
Minipelli?
Can I just add to Mr. Studo's comment there? We, as a board, are bringing this to town meeting for the opportunity to buy it for, really because it's next door to the rec center. Why are we veering off course and talking about selling it?
Right.
We need a vote now to sell it, and it doesn't make any sense to me. If we need to really, talk about the opportunity that's afforded to the town, we're asking people, we need, that extra special number of town people to be in on this with, to vote yes for it. You know what I mean? And it's like the turkey farm. I know you talked a little bit about that, but it was all off course on what do you plan to do with it. And, we're not, and even the turkey farm is a little bit different. It would have been great open space in that area, but this is like Mrs. Mullins said, it's right next door there, like Mr. Studo said, so that's the benefit, is adding to that beautiful park, adding to that beautiful, recreational facility. So we just have to stop veering off course. The town's going to decide what the use is, but we have to take that first step and buy it.
Yeah.
For a good.
Thank
We shouldn't
you.
even be talking about, we decided to sell it from the line. That shouldn't even be a discussion point. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, yeah, I think we had a majority feeling that way anyway, but it doesn't matter because it's not written in there anyway. It wasn't something we could do. So we can put that to rest.
Okay.
So do we have another motion or?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Moving on to appointments.
All right. No, actually, I think we're moving on to public comment, even though
Okay.
we've had a lot. Is there?
Forgot about that.
Is there anybody who has public comment in general? Mrs. Mullen, it seems like you do, but.
Is the next motion coming up?
That's going to be tabled.
We're talking enough about the people we want tomorrow, right? Yeah, and yes, can we do facial recognition on that person up there.
We saw them.
Like they do in Law and Order.
No, I think, I mean, this is,
Highly doubt it's the actual person. I mean, you're not.
well,
gonna-
I don't know, there was an actual person sitting there.
That was the face.
And this is recorded, so we can get that to the police,
Law and
right?
Order, they would already know who did it, and FBI.
Yeah, we'll absolutely, we will absolutely be on that.
The FBI International would have had that person in cuffs.
As soon as I saw him with all his gaming stuff, I was like, I saw it coming. Mr. Atkinson, did you have public comment?
Just a quick question. We're having a special town meeting tomorrow for the land.
Can you come up? Yeah, just so everybody can hear you.
Yeah, we got the special town meeting tomorrow for the land acquisition. When are we gonna have the special town meeting for the sewer question?
That would be Mr. Studo's.
Hopefully we won't.
We don't have a date.
Yeah,
So-
because I was at a meeting at MassDOT was doing their Route 114 rebuilding project. And since the potential routing of the sewer, proposed sewer impacts that project, and in fact, if we don't get our ducks in a row, we may have issues because MassDOT won't let us cut Route 114 open for 5 years once they finish that project. So I'm wondering how close we are to bumping up against that limit.
So we have the dates pretty strongly of when we can do it. However, again, it's something where when we finish these, well, which may be, I mean, some may call preliminary, some may call final with Andover, North Andover. And then also we're very close to getting that last piece of data set, which we'll do the best we can on answering the question on how the sewer would affect public services, such as police, fire, school, which is gonna be estimated, numbers at best, then at that point. But we are fully aware of the deadline with Mass DOT and following it, and then also, I don't want to say that, alternatives are being looked at, but there is more than one viable route.
Yeah, that would avoid Route 114 completely. I've seen some
So,
of them.
and I can't speak on that now, more because I don't have all the data in front of me, because it hasn't been looked at, but also because, again, it's just not, I'm not prepared to based on that.
Yeah,
So,
because the numbers I saw at the meeting in MassDOT, I went, Merrimack College in Andover, was MassDOT's gonna start construction fall of 2025, and then I think they're talking about completion sometime in 2026. So we gotta get it done between, probably no later than mid-2026. Otherwise, they're gonna tell us, no, we can't do it, assuming that's the route that we ultimately use. And again, you've already pointed out, there's a number of routes, some of which avoid the problem completely. Actually, I kind of hope we go that route simply because it gives us more time to make a decision. One of the things driving this has been the MassDOT requirements. If we don't need to deal with MassDOT, then that gives the town more time to take their time and really think it through rather than do it just because we have, a figurative deadline to deal with. That could cost the town serious money or delay the project for another 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure there was public comment, but a comment in the chat from Jeff Griffin. The taxpayers of the town are very concerned about this purchase without a clearer picture. I think referring to 1 Central Street.
I didn't hear the end part
The
of that.
taxpayers of the town are very concerned about this purchase without a clearer picture.
A clearer
A
picture?
comment was made during the very confusing discussion about the authority to convey, which cannot be granted anyway at this point. So hopefully we've addressed that concern.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, hopefully that got cleared up for you, Mr. Griffin.
I
If
don't know
not-
that that's the reason for the comment, that's just the timing of the comment.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, and I'm gonna close public comment. And we're going to move on to appointments for Cultural Council, Taxation Aid Committee, and we are going to be tabling youth services.
Okay, so Madam Chair, I move to place in a nomination the following names for appointment to the Cultural Council for a term to expire on December 31, 2026. And there's two openings. Kathleen Dubois, Julie Elkins, Bonnie Gibson, Raphael Isaiah Shapiro, Akam Rahman, Christina Gandolfo, and Elizabeth Mitchell.
Second?
I have a motion, and I have a second by Mr. O'Leary. Mr. O'Leary? Oh, no,
Oh.
further discussion, and I believe you are the liaison.
Yes, I am the liaison, and the chair would like to bring forward Kathleen Dubois and Julie Elkins as the two people to fill those spots. We hope everybody else who applied. Usually they put down multiple committees they'd like to be involved with. They should reach out to those committee chairs and let them know you're still interested in working with that committee as well. So Kathleen Dubois and Julie Elkins.
Okay. So I have a motion, and I have a second by Mr. O'Leary.
I already did,
Yep, he already did.
just in case.
And we will do a roll call. Mr. O'Leary.
Kathleen Dubois and Julie Elkins.
Mrs. Manupelli.
Kathleen Dubois and Julie Elton.
Mr. Wallner.
Kathleen Dubois and Julie Elkins.
Mr. Studo.
Kathleen Dubois, and Julie Elkins.
And the chair is Kathleen Dubois and Julie Elkins.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Congratulations.
Yep. Madam Chair, I move to place in a nomination the following names for reappointment, appointment to the Taxation Aid Committee for terms to expire on, and there's no, oh, there are down below. There's two openings, Priscilla Fitzgerald, December 31, 2026, and myself, Rich Wallner, December 31, 2024, and I'm an incumbent. And there's also Yanzi Zawo and John Ruengia.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and I have a second for the discussion, and I believe, Mr. Wallner, you are liaison.
Yep, I kind of, the acting chair, I suppose. I reached out, John was on the committee before, he actually has resigned from the committee, and Yanzi I've never been able to reach, so the recommendation is Priscilla Fitzgerald and myself, Rich Wallner.
I'm confused about that. Is that standard for a liaison to be part of the committee also?
I'm appointed.
What's that?
I'm appointed to it.
Yeah, the select board has appointed Mr. Wallner to be, he's both a liaison and a member of the committee, and I believe the chair of the committee, from what I just heard you say.
Acting chair, basically.
Kind of works the same as EDC, right? You can be liaison and on the committee.
Okay.
We have to vote.
All right.
Just with the, well, it depends if he's on as a liaison, that's one thing. If he's on as a voting member, it can extend beyond his term.
So, yeah.
So we've had liaisons that are voting members of committees, but it goes towards extending only to when they're still a member of the committee.
Right, that would
Of
be
the board, of
EDC,
the board.
right.
So
So this would be different.
this, well, but we've done this before too.
Okay. I just was,
That's okay. It's
It
just
was-
curiosity.
yeah,
She was
yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
it's like a conflict of interest. I should nominate myself, right?
that's what I was worried about.
Just adding to your things to do.
All right, so I have a motion and I have a second by Mr. O'Leary. Mr. O'Leary.
Priscilla Fitzgerald for December 31st, 2026. Richard Wallner, December 31st, 2024. These are for specific terms. And they're staggering, which is actually good.
Mrs. Manupelli.
Mrs. Fitzgerald and Mr. Wallner.
Mr. Studo.
Priscilla Fitzgerald, 12/31/26, Richard Wallner, 12/31/24.
Mr. Wallner.
Yep. Priscilla Fitzgerald, December 31, 2026, and Rich Wallner, December 31, 2024.
Priscilla Fitzgerald, December 31st, 2026. Rich Wallner, December 31st, 2024. All right. Meeting minutes, they are going to be tabled. And I just want to explain, I know that we have tabled them for several meetings. There are some amendments that need to be made. There's a couple of board members who are not comfortable that there are corrections that need to be made on them. So we're going to table them again and hopefully be able to vote on them in the next meeting. So we're going to move on to setting upcoming meeting schedule.
What about the acknowledgement?
Oh, acknowledge, I'm sorry, I skipped that.
Those reviewers?
Of acknowledgement of review and continued non-disclosure of the following select board executive session minutes.
You ready for me? I'm sorry. Where are we at? I'm sorry, I lost track. I was doing this now.
Just the acknowledgement.
So they're on the agenda itself. The second grouping of executive sessions, it's just reading that they were released.
Oh, I see. Oh, I got you. Okay, I see. I'm sorry. My misunderstanding. Acknowledgement and review and continued non-disclosure of the following select board executive session minutes. October 16th, 2023, executive session. November 6th, 2023, executive session. November 20, 2023, executive session. December 4, 2023, executive session. December 18, 2023, executive session. And December 22nd, 2023, executive session. That's it.
So we're on to setting upcoming meeting schedule.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. You and I kind of looked at a draft of a schedule that would be as follows. The next regular board meeting would be Monday, February 12th. It would also be the hearing to set the spring and fall annual town meeting dates. Saturday, March 2nd would be the first budget hearing for police, fire, and DPW in the morning. Monday, March 4th and Monday, March 18th would be regular Monday meetings, the first and third Mondays for budget hearings number 2 and 3 for the remaining departments.
You say 12 and 16 for February?
Nope, just the 12th for February.
Okay.
And then for March, it's the 2nd, 4th, and 18th. And then
Could you send that in an email?
I'm sorry,
I
you said
can't get on my work email right now.
4th on March 4th, and then March 18th?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Please.
yes.
Thank you.
And the budget is in March 2nd.
Yes, Saturday, March 2nd.
Yeah,
And then regular meetings, March 4th and 18th.
yeah.
These are in the agenda notes for tonight's meeting as well, but we'll send them out by email.
Okay.
April 1st and 22nd.
April Fool's Day, you want to have a meeting?
It's a Monday.
Is that a joke?
It's after 10.
And then Monday, May 6th,
I'm sorry, April 1st and what?
22nd.
22nd. Oh, it's not on my birthday this year.
Then May 6th would be to sign the town meeting warrant. Town election is May 7th. And then on May 8th or 9th, Wednesday or Thursday, an organizational meeting, as is the board's custom. And then May 20th would be the warrant article hearing ahead of the town meeting. And then it looks like the town meeting, you're going to have a hearing on this, obviously, but it would be Monday, June 10th, second Monday.
At 10.
Yes. And then I left open
Already have it in.
either the 17th or the 24th would be the last meeting of the fiscal year for a water rate hearing, and we could decide which of those two dates makes the most sense as we get closer to it.
moving on to town administrator's report.
Madam Chair, just two items. First is an update on snow and ice expenditures. I have authorized deficit spending, which was necessary to maintain proper snow and ice removal. We have expended $235,328, which is $57,732 over what was appropriated for the fiscal year. Sorry, it's flashing red light. So we have gone into a deficit, which is not uncommon for this time of year. Fortunately, we do carry a pretty substantial carryover for a deficit from this fiscal year into the next. It's up to $450,000 on the revenue plan. It's a pretty big number because of how expensive it's gotten for snow and ice removal, even when we don't have, multiple really big storms. These smaller storms can be just as expensive. But we're about $57,000 into deficit. And I do just want to recognize this most recent storm, somewhat unpredictable. DPW, I talked to Mr. Deming this morning. They had a pretty aggressive plan that was going to rely on contractors. They adjusted that plan based on the rate of snowfall and didn't have to call in contractors, which it is a savings. So they did a technique of it's basically our guys with our equipment that are both salting and plowing the entire town. And I thought the town worked pretty good this morning, considering that.
They did an incredible job.
Yeah, not having 35 or 40 additional contractors, and have the town look like it did. It's pretty good. So great job once again by our Department of Public Works in snow and ice removal. My only other item to report is an update with regard to a matter that was before the board very publicly back in August. As the community, I'm going to read from a statement. As the community knows, on August 21st, 2023, the Select Board held a public hearing to determine if the dog, Floyd, owned by Michael and Casey Baker, was a nuisance or dangerous dog. Based on the evidence introduced at the hearing, including evidence of attacks by the dog on other dogs and an owner and the killing of another dog, the board unanimously voted to declare Floyd is a dangerous dog. The board ordered Floyd to be euthanized by August 29, 2023. The owners exercised their right to appeal to Woburn District Court, and on October 2nd, 2023, a magistrate affirmed the findings and order of the Select Board. The owners then appealed for a full trial, which was scheduled and then postponed multiple times to the most recent pending trial date of this Thursday, February 2nd. In accordance with an impoundment order issued by the court, Floyd had been in the custody of the town since September 14th and was being cared for at an out-of-state kennel. At the direction of the owners, Michael and Casey Baker, Floyd was euthanized by a veterinarian on January 11th. The town continues to pursue steps to recover the $8,000 in costs associated with Floyd's care during the appeal from the owner. While nothing can bring back a lost pet or erase the memory of a violent attack, we hope that the owner's compliance with the Select Board's euthanasia order will bring closure for the victims and witnesses to the attacks by this dangerous dog. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gilberto. I personally, that was one of the hardest decisions I've had to make on this board. And although I know it was the right thing, it was a hard decision to make. But it's over now. For the dog's sake, it's not being prolonged any further. I think we're ready to adjourn. A motion?
Madam Chair, move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn and a second by Mr. Studo, who beat Mr. O'Leary.
Aye.
Mr. O'Leary.
Aye.
Mr. Wallner.
Aye.
Mr. Studo.
Aye.
Mrs. Minipelli. And chair is aye. Thank you, everybody.
Folks, thank you very much.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you for coming.